tell me true. Is the sky cloudy or blue? Are your feet cold, must be snow? Are they hot, then sun's aglow? You don't meow just for fun. You predict rain or sun. No app or pro can match your grace. You're the forecast with the furry face. If your back is damp today, I'll grab my coat and be on my way. If you're dry and warm, I'm set. You're my fuzzy weather vet. No Doppler radar, no TV fuss, just whiskers, paws, and lots of trust. Forget the news, I don't need that. I got a psychic purring cat. No umbrella, I'll take a bet. You're never wrong, my favorite pet. Who needs a pro in a weather blouse when there's a pussycat in the house? Don't meow just for fun. You predict rain or sun. No app or pro can match your grace. You're the forecast with the furry face. If your back is damp today, I'll grab my coat and be on my way. If you're dry and warm, I'm set. You're my fuzzy weather vet. No Doppler radar, no TV fuss, just whiskers, paws, and lots of trust. Forget the news, I don't need that. I got a psychic purring cat. No umbrella, I'll take a bet. You're never wrong, my favorite pet. Who needs a pro in a weather blouse when there's a pussycat in the house? Doppler raising cat in the house.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, what if any you might be, and welcome. Today, especially, we have Bev to tell us. Bev, what will your ruling be on the Rule 14 violations done by the state? Is it okay they do it because the defense did it first?
Okay, I have thought about it, and the fact is that what happens on motions is that they have this little dice that has 20 sides, and I roll it, and then wherever it lands, I tell my assistant to use that day's Mad Lib and use that to make an order. So I really can't tell you how I'm going to rule yet because my assistant is still typing up that particular Mad Libs.
So, from the horse's own mouth, we don't know.
And since I'm zooming in between you, me, and the water cooler, I can barely get past my speech when I say, jurors, we are working so hard to streamline and make this the most swift as possible. We are on schedule. It is the funniest joke I tell every day. I crack me up.
And I also have a special little something. Hey, John. Wow. I know it's your birthday, and I know Maria is giving you the best birthday she can. She really appreciates everything you do for the family. And apparently she's putting on a party for you. So she reached out to me and said, hey, can you send my hubby a special little thing? And I said, no nudes. And she said, I'll pay you extra. And I said, Maria, what happens in the sanctity of marriage, I won't get into. But congratulations on your birthday. 21 has never looked as good as it does to you. And I hope that you get all the happy birthdays, all the birthday wishes, and all the cake that you want. And remember that when I'm on the screen, Maria needs a little shh. And when she comes in later and says, "You won't believe what happens today on Baker's stream because we were watching the Karen Reed stream," you just say, "Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting. Oh, yeah, you're right." Just say those words and you will live to your next birthday. But happy birthday. Mwah. Wow. And I hope it'll be a wonderful day. I said no kisses,
I'll allow
but
it.
it just came over me. Whew. He sounds like a gem.
Now, to break out of character for just a second, Bev, I know you have been to the salon recently. I saw the blowout. You would not have a crick in your neck. You would not have to do this if you cut your GZ bangs. It is wicked annoying, okay? Wicked annoying.
Yeah, and that Bev had a blowout has absolutely nothing to do with John's birthday. Mo is not endorsing special birthday favors.
Consent is a good thing. That's all Auntie Bev's gonna say. Also, Baker, do you know Dr. Wolf's number? I have some physiological questions.
Imagine if she
Chambers.
called up that Assyrian wolf down in Miami and get really disappointed. And T-Rex said, "We're having too many sidebars." Bev, how many sidebars do you plan on having today? All of them.
They closed down the side bar. So my new favorite bar here is the Sandy Clam. Make of it what you will.
And thank you, M. Spire. Bev is not trying to streamline this case. No, she is not. She is all over the place. Blake down the slap fight from yesterday. Yesterday, Alessi, who is kind of the expert guy on the defense team, stood up and said, well, we have a clear Rule 14 violation because the day after ARCA turned in their expert report, which they have been ordered by Bev to turn in by the 7th, the state's crash experts, who this report was a rebuttal to, turned in a new report where they now claim that the timeline that they have put in the first report isn't the right timeline because they had looked at some phones and they had looked at ARCA's findings. How they could look at ARCA's findings in less than 24 hours, write a report and give it to them. And Brennan stood up and did his normal, the defense are mean. And he said, well, there has been multiple Rule 14 violations for the defense, so I can do some. And Bev was her usual, Alessi, give me something by tomorrow, and didn't take, when it happened with ARCA, she blew up and she had grave concerns. Now she just said, well, what could remedy this? There was talk about maybe postponing the trial. I didn't hear a motion to dismiss. I actually had expected a motion to dismiss. Brennan just said, keep ARCA out. The problem is ARCA have said the entire time, the only testimony we are going to give is based on the report made in February 2023. But they are then hired in to rebut Aperture. Aperture is a company hired by the state, and they said, hey, when you're done with your direct, can we keep you in the back pocket to rebuttal the state's experts? And they said, sure, let's look at it when we get the report. And now all of a sudden they had gotten the report, they had written a report about that report, and then there was a new report, not disclosed, with a timeline shift that shifted timeline 27 seconds, which also means that when Whiffen gave his testimony, the timestamps in that testimony was wrong without that being disclosed to the jury. So Hanky Panky believes that it's a-okay for the state in the middle of their case in chief to just say, fuck it. We put an expert on the stand. We didn't tell him that his report was wrong because we actually believe it's a different timeline. He said it in his opening statements, the same timeline. And now he wants to say there's a new timeline. So that's the slap fight yesterday that the state, again, violated Rule 14. No Rule 14 motions has ever been granted by Bev to the defense, even though there has been multiple Rule 14 violations during the hearing phase and the court case. But that one time where there was a bill of $24,000 to cover travel expenses and court time to ARCA, she almost kicked the Pro Hoc Vice lawyers out. So I hope that she'll come back today and say, okay, court's ended, jury, you don't have to, you can go home, enjoy your weekend. We're going to have a meeting. Mr. Brennan, you call Aperture. We have a voir dire with them right now, telling us how they wrote a report the day after they got a report and who ordered it, because Brennan said, I didn't know they were going to write a report. So Aperture, who is quite a new company in this world, thought, hey, let's do our homework without anyone telling us. Kind of like when Dave was in school and he was the guy in the back room. Miss, I read 5 pages ahead. That's not normally what experts do. They will normally say, you pay me, I work. But apparently, it was a big surprise for the state that they dropped that report as well.
Well, also, I mean, there's a lot of computer modeling, I would guess. I would guess that you'd have to get, into the physics and actually get like the white chalkboard out and all that crap. So you're telling me they got the report and were able to, in one day, do all the chemistrology and physicsology? Also, the state has routinely delayed in giving discovery to the defense, correct? So this is not a pattern that is new with the state. So again, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And Bev said no more flipping shenanigans. And here we are with shenanigans.
Why were they issuing a new report? No one knows, because the state claims they didn't know that the hired experts they hired were writing a new report. So you've been a lawyer long enough to know that no expert picks up a pen from a piece of paper and writes on it unless he's been paid for it. But they want you to believe that Aperture just chucked the report at them. They have showed it to the defense. They turned it over to the defense. According to the defense, on the 11th, which would have been Sunday. According to Brennan, on the 8th, which is when the report was written, which doesn't make sense either. And then they were arguing it yesterday and said, we got 100 and I can't remember how many pages that we need to then have. An ARCA couldn't work after the 7th. That's a court order by Bev. So they can't even send it to their experts and say, hey, we need you to check this out, because then Bev will lose her mind again and claim that they are breaking the rules. So this is a big old FU to everyone. Plus, the new report claims that the timeline is wrong, based on exactly the same information they had last year, where the defense argued it and the state said that's not true. So again, this is trial by ambush. No matter if the state thought they needed something new, that Aperture company has been working for the state since December of 2024. So there's no reasonable explanation that they in one day wrote a totally new report disclaiming everything they had given to ARCA, because they didn't know what ARCA was going to find till the 7th, unless they knew they were going to change it and already had one in the computer ready to go.
Functional report, because wasn't ARCA confused as hell as to what Aperture was doing?
Yes.
Yeah. Doesn't that also mean the Commonwealth has been presenting the wrong timeline for a year?
It means witness testimony should be stricken, and the jury should be informed that the state have put on a witness who have lied to the jury.
This guy's full of shit.
Yeah.
I mean, are we going to get all of the emails, all of the text, all of the phone calls? Are we going to have to, can we get Cellbrite downloads of the entire state team? Because I remember there being a bit. I am gravely concerned about the communications that have
Yeah,
gone on
but
here.
again, it's she's not going to do it. And Dave,
Oh,
then
well,
you didn't listen to what I say. They turned it in Friday. Last delivery date were in April for evidence. We started the trial April 22nd. I believe the last day to turn over evidence were the 8th. So no, they haven't done anything correctly. There was actually a hearing, a voir dire hearing, to have ARCA allowed to make a rebuttal to the report that was delivered on time. Then
And they almost
ARCA
didn't let them
makes
do
a
that.
rebuttal, and ARCA, then the day after, the state makes a rebuttal to the ARCA report that they couldn't have read. So it's clear trial by ambush. There's no way you can say, well, the state's allowed to do it. They didn't hire a new expert. They used the same expert whose report was rebutted and say, no, we actually totally lied in our first report, and this is the new one. So there's no way to pick that round square in a triangle hole. Nope. I said that ARCA was ordered to turn over their report by the 7th, and on the 8th there was a rebuttal that no one can tell you where it came from because the state claimed they didn't order it. Yeah. So first of all, how did they get the ARCA report? Second of all, how many experts works for no pay? I'm a shitty grifter, but I like to get paid as well.
Just start sending reports to people with bills on them.
Hey, I can do like that.
I'm just going to start invoicing everybody.
That I'll be frank with you. He started emailing people in the Delphi case. He emailed the judge and claimed he had evidence.
Sure, guys.
No, the I'll be frank with you guy. That retard who came into my chat one day and said, "Fight me, bro." And then I said, "Hey, you're stupid." And then he went on to LTL and said, "Fight me, bro." And then he sits on his channel, and I think he's high. He's more high than Grande. And he just sits there and says,
"That's impressive."
I can beat all these stupid grifters who think that they're so much smarter than I am, but they're afraid of me. I have special skills. I sit here in Netherlands and smoke my weed, and then I sit on stream, and then I invite people on, and I lose arguments, and then I rage quit my own stream.
He's really good.
Your French is actually pretty good. The French accent, pretty good.
That was my Dutch accent.
Same thing.
You are unmuted.
No, it's two very distinct.
Thank you. So I need to see counsel at sidebar, please.
Already, huh?
Yeah, well, they were supposed to deliver her something. I never found out what it was. Unless you get that to me by tomorrow. I don't know what it was. Oh, and hi, chat. We talked about a lot of things, so we didn't get to say hi to all of you. And Maria, I hope your husband was happy for the birthday wishes.
Am I supposed to know who Maria and John are, by the way? I was really confused.
It's one who reached out and said, "Hey, my husband. I'm not saying he has a crush on you, but he would be really happy if you gave him a shout out." And you know me, I'm a giver.
He's a pleaser, y'all. I tried to fill hubby in on this case. He said, so he died from a car swipe with the dog driving, and the cops seen nothing. Exactly, M-Spire. That's pretty much, you got it.
Oh my
nailed.
God, it was Chloe with the Lexus in the driveway.
You all do know that she was guilty and Sandra Birdsmore did it to herself. And what?
And the law enforcement who died in the gym was an accident. Turtle Boy is making what? What did it say? Turtle Boy is making
I don't know. I think someone got into the Friday snack bar a little early.
You all do know that
a lady never drinks before 10.
Who is in the suit next to Paul? Isn't it Mrs. O'Keefe? Oh, next to Paul. Sorry, I can't tell because I can't see him. If that new report is let in, is Bev gonna? I don't know. I don't know how she's gonna square this round peg in a quarter hole. I'm just making things up. The defense had to give Bev a time of when in their questionnaire they were calling them. Yeah, but there was also get that to me by tomorrow. She said that before Brennan smacked his computer the first time.
Ugh.
Of all the days I have to go home or leave early, I miss a slap fight.
Unless he was mad. And the problem is when he gets mad, he gets even longer-winded and puts even more $5 words into his sentences. And Bev it was 4 o'clock. Bev wasn't having it. So if you could speed it up, I'll try. Your Honor, as I previously stated when I said it before, then I, by way of already stating, and you could just hear her, instead of just saying, okay, Your Honor, this is crap. He has this way of making everything longer.
Alessi being long-windedly passive-aggressive.
Yeah.
Why do I miss all the fun things? Won't somebody think of Bev?
I think you're thinking about Esty. Paul is dressed down today, no suit. Well, I think, yes, the day he had a suit on was the day they thought that the kids were going to testify. But if you noticed, he has a checkered shirt on, so maybe he has multiple ladies waiting for a little chin scratch. Betterow was on fire last night on Defense Diaries. Yeah, I heard he used a word that I can't use because I'm a lady and we don't use the F-bomb. Thank you, WikiHat82. Be a member for 1 month. Well, with a checkered shirt, he can signal more glazed donuts at a time.
Gross.
Ugh.
Hey, Pure Blood, I don't care what Aiden said in your world. I'm not covering Aiden Carney. I know he's in court right now. Go to an Aiden Carney channel and watch that. Right now, we're covering the Karen Reed trial, you know? This has nothing to do with Turtle Boy. I know all of you people are sitting in the cock chair furiously just to try and get a little more enjoyment out of Aiden. He's not going to love you. So please, if you want to be in chat, you're more than welcome. Keep it to the topic. If you want to sit here like every other spurk and said, Aiden boy touched me. Can he touch me again? Can I call him daddy? Then please go to another channel because I think Krusty is more the place for you. Plevin, Caffy Daffy, that weirdo who likes to talk about underage people who they should just wait a few years to bang him. Wonderful people you have over on the anti-side. If you want to hang out here, listen to the trial, get convinced that because this has nothing to do with Aiden, that yesterday this case should have been dismissed because the medical examiner said no injuries consistent with being hit by a car. Then you're more than welcome. But again, if you just want to sit in the cock chair, please go. Gracias. Yeah, that's a hard one to follow up on.
No, I was trying to think. So, who are we thinking they're calling next? The neurosurgeon? Would make sense, but knowing Hank, knowing my baby Hank, he is going to call the lady at the heavy petting zoo to say that Higgins was there, during the nor'easter. So you can stop this, maligning this federal ATF agent because he was at the heavy petting zoo. The goats there are filing a cease and desist, but we do have evidence in Minecraft.
Pure Blood, it doesn't effing matter what Aiden believed. That you believe that this case is anything to do with that shows me that you probably need to go out, find a piece of grass, put a finger on it, and then come back and find out that this is actually an injustice done to John O'Keefe, which has nothing to effing do with Turtle Boy. Can't you tiny pea brains get it into your head? This is a murder trial where a woman wrongly stands accused for killing her husband, well, boyfriend. It has nothing to do with all your petty little, oh, Turtle Boy is so mean. He said nasty things. Yeah, well, Turtle Boy's in trial in court today too. Go watch that. This channel, we're following the Karen Reed trial. And I don't care if Turtle Boy said she was guilty or innocent. I don't care that Plevin is a fucking grifter who also believes she's innocent, but because he gets paid, he says she's guilty. I don't give a fuck. Sorry for my language. It's Friday, and I'm fed up with all these idiots. Because Tom had a lot of shit going on his channel as well. All you idiots should go together, sit in a room, and just fart loudly, because it will make more sense than what you go around in everyone's channel and put out there. I'm sorry. We are 219 other people here who I think actually want to watch the trial and see how this injustice is done, because there will be no justice for John O'Keefe, no matter how this case ends, because the shitty Canton PD and MSP didn't do their job. So if you want to sit and fillet yourself to Turtle Boy, please do it somewhere else. I can't.
You know what? No,
on a
I'm with
fucking
Pureblood
Friday.
Warrior. F Turtle Boy. I don't even like that guy.
Again, jurors, strike that last comment. As always, the comments that the lawyers or creators make are not evidence. Now, I want everyone to take a pregnant pause, because mostly you juries, because I want to tell you the new schedule. It is between now and screw you. So
The most important people in this case that everybody seems to have forgotten in this room is the jury. So we're going to take a 15-minute break and both sides take a pregnant pause and think about the jury.
The almighty Pep has spoken.
I was sitting talking and saying, you said pregnant pause, so here you go. But I was taken off.
Oh my God. How does that woman talk? Like, how many Virginia Slims does that woman smoke? Asking for a friend.
Well, enough, because her voice is worse than Walter Goggins.
Who's
True.
Walter Goggins?
It's of course
He's
you
the
haven't
guy
seen it because
from
it's too
Fallout.
close to your home. Justified. What's that show ever?
What?
You haven't watched?
Just
So Walter Goggins is the antagonist in Justified. Great series. He's also kind of the antagonist lead person in Righteous Gemstones.
yeah, he's Baby Billy, isn't he?
Yes, Baby Billy.
Yeah.
Haven't you watched? If you haven't watched Justified, have you watched Banshee?
No. No.
T-Rex, well, I have a new gift to make for Expert. Good luck on Friday Night Live tonight. God Baker, I don't know. I might not show up because I have to go to the kiddos tomorrow. As we all know, YouTube does not enforce its monetization policies on Fridays. Baker, you're good. Thank you. Thank you for the swear jar.
I don't think that's true.
And Snuggy, $5 for morning swear stream jar. Good morning, Baker, Val, Cape Cod, Bev. And a more to the swear jar. Where's
Good
Kimmy?
morning again,
Bake-
Council.
Bacon
Good
needs
morning
me
again,
picked up.
Ms. Reed.
Needs a pick-me-up.
Good morning, jurors.
We got through all of it. And go watch Banshee and Justified, you heathens.
I'm still watching The Righteous Gemstones.
And refrain from discussing this case with anyone since we left yesterday.
Him and Timothy Oliphant
Right.
is
Yes or no
a
to
great
refer
couple.
quickly. Were you also able to follow my instructions and refrain from doing any independent research or investigation into this case?
Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Did anyone happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case since we left?
Yeah, we read that Brennan is a son of a
I have
bitch.
one other important instruction for you folks, and it's so important that each
Can you hit
and
that sound
every
booster
juror
by
Yeah.
can
chance?
hear the evidence or the testimony that's presented, can follow the testimony, and can understand and evaluate the testimony of each witness and the exhibits. In order to do that, I just want to be very clear that it's important that people do not comment on the evidence or make any comments. Once you enter the room, it's probably a good idea to just listen. Don't talk, don't make any facial expressions, no muttering under your breath, no audible noises, because people
The
need
nerve of this woman to tell
This
anybody
woman-
not to
Yes.
mutter under her breath.
So out of
Not to
respect
mention they
for
have
your
been
fellow
jerking this
jurors,
jury
I
around
would
like
ask that you be very
puppets.
careful to make sure you don't do that. And out of respect to the lawyers who worked so hard to get this case before.
Yeah, could you stop doing it then?
Thank you very much. With that, Mr. Brennan, your first witness, please.
Or if I could
I think
begin
we
by
should with hardworking
offering a
lawyers.
stipulation that's agreed to between the parties.
Okay, can we turn the AC down, please?
I'll turn the booth down because now it's loud.
Thank you. Yes,
Your Honor, if I may, I'd like to read a stipulation agreement between the Commonwealth and the defense.
okay.
And the stipulation between the parties is as follows. Now comes the Commonwealth and Karen Reed, the defendant in the above captioned matter. Both parties respectfully stipulate to the following. The two Massachusetts State
asshole.
Police troopers present at the autopsy conducted by the medical examiner, Dr. Scortibello, on January 31st, 2022, were Trooper Keefe and Trooper Watson. Former Trooper Michael Proctor was not present.
Thank you.
And
Yes, thank you.
with that, Your Honor, I'd like to introduce and play clip number 21.
Also, Keith said he was the only one there,
Too
by the
easy.
way.
Yeah.
Hold on one second, please. I just want that.
They asked Keith. He said he was the only one from his department there, but that was clearly a lie.
Yeah.
Way to
Who
go,
is Watson? I thought he was with Sherlock.
I didn't hear that.
I did hear something when they took a
Oh.
break. Somebody said that the jury.
So John's laying there, and his left and his right, and I approached John from the left. That's where the street is. And he had a piece of glass, like perched on his nose, like just wedged like a splinter would be. And I just pulled it, and as soon as I pulled it, it just gushed blood down his face.
That doesn't make sense.
So he had blood coming out of his nose. Okay.
But he didn't have a heartbeat, so that shouldn't happen.
No,
Right.
they were doing CPR, so that could happen if it's stuck in the gastral tract.
That's fair. I'll give you that one.
169.
Why do we have volume either at 1 or 375? Why are those the volume levels?
It's my gift for you for Friday.
Jesus Christ, man.
Andrew poured
God,
out in
not
Spanish.
Oh, my special son, Lally. I love you, sweetie. Go hit it out the park. Mama's rooting for you.
Ugh. I feel like Lally has a kink that involves diapers for some reason.
Who is this? I don't even know.
Hey, Mr. Lally, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury, spelling your last name for the court?
Yeah, my name is Andre Porto, last name spelled Porto.
And
I
what do you
really
do
thought
for
it was
work,
going to
sir?
end in
I'm
Stein.
a forensic
Not gonna
scientist
laugh.
too in the DNA unit
Not gonna
at the
lie.
Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab.
And where did you go to school?
I received my undergraduate Bachelor of Science in Microbiology from the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. And then I
All
received
that
a Master of
means still
Science
in
in
Mom's
Biomedical
basement.
Forensic Sciences at the Boston University School of Medicine.
Now, following your education, where did you go to work?
I started at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab in the DNA unit.
And how long have you worked at the state lab?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
How long have you worked at the state lab, sir?
Since September 2019.
Now, when you joined the lab, what was your position and title that you were initially hired for?
I was hired as a forensic scientist 1.
Now, can you please explain to the jury your duties and responsibilities as a forensic scientist 1?
Sure. So a forensic scientist 1 is a training position where we're hired and we undergo an extensive training program where we do undergo the analysis process in training casework samples, where we learn how to do the lab work and analyze profiles. And at the end of this training, I took a competency test to make sure that I
Is he the guy
able
who
to
did the
accurately
DNA
conduct
test?
the DNA analysis process.
Yeah.
And once I passed that, I was then put on to do casework. And a year after completing both my competency tests and a year after my hire date, I was then promoted to a forensic scientist 2.
And so you're currently a forensic scientist 2, is that correct?
Correct.
And what is the difference between a forensic scientist 1 and a forensic scientist 2?
So a forensic scientist 2
We've been
is just
through this
the automatic
We
promotion
just
you get after
answered
a year of
this.
4
hire
times.
and passing the initial competency test. And we're able to analyze the
Maybe you've seen
to
what
do
a
the
lesson
DNA
does to
process in
experts.
casework samples.
Now, so what
He
type
doesn't
of
want anyone
analysis
to
do you
notice his
currently
5 head.
I don't think he's wearing these glasses ironically. I think it's a new trend and it's really ugly.
It's like from the 80s. It's like the dominant.
Yeah,
People,
this is
people.
glasses my dad had when I was a kid.
Yeah.
We are not bringing this back. I will fight against this. I have never fought. I will fight harder than I am fighting for the state. We are not letting the 80s come back. No front pleats, no those, no.
I don't remember this guy at all.
He's the guy who did the DNA test and he did all the, well, we found a lot of DNA, but we don't know who it came from. So,
Seems
yeah.
like that would be important in an
Yeah,
investigation.
but they didn't take
but
any
I'll allow
DNA
it.
test or didn't ask for any DNA test. So, hey, we couldn't find anything other than it wasn't Bukaki and Trooper Proctor. And again, does he have that slight tinted glass in his weird glasses?
No, I don't think he
Doesn't
has
look
the
like it.
machismo to wear aviators.
No, not like, you know, the I think they're called
The-
smoke
yeah.
colored with the little blue
The-
tint in it.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
I'm
know.
just stalling so we can speed up his CV.
Let's just bullshit for a minute because this guy's,
at the
scientist. Nothing
Massachusetts,
interesting.
State Police Crime Laboratory?
I
Highly
complete
educated.
the DNA analysis process in casework and known samples. That includes the lab work as well as analyzing the DNA profiles that are generated from the work.
Now, first, just in general terms, but specifically with
Yeah,
reference to DNA
I think
analysis,
that's
can you
what the
explain to
problem
jury,
is.
How is that analysis performed?
Sure. So there's 4 steps in the analysis process. The first step is extraction, where we apply heat and chemicals to the samples to break open the cells and release that DNA to be available for use. Step 2 is called quantitation, where we take a small sample of that extracted DNA to estimate, and we use chemicals and run it through an instrument to
I
estimate how
believe
much
you did,
DNA will be
yes.
extracted. And then we proceed to step 3, which is called amplification. And that's basically, think of it as a molecular photocopier, where we target specific areas of the DNA to make millions of copies of.
Well, this is the guy who tested it, so he should be the one who talks about dog DNA. But if you're thinking about Dr. Russell, that'll be the defense. But he doesn't talk about DNA.
And then we run it through, go to detection, where we run it through an instrument, and we generate the DNA profile as an electronic file on a computer.
Now, is the state lab where you work accredited,
Yes, it is.
and by whom?
We are accredited by an organization called ANAB, which stands for ANSI, National Accreditation Board, and ANSI stands for American National Standards Institute.
I need you to slow down, please. Please.
Sorry.
No, we don't.
Now, Mr. Porto, are there steps taken in your lab during that process that you were just explaining to prevent against contamination?
Yes, there are.
And can you explain what those are?
Sure. So there are various steps. One step to prevent contamination between analysts would be to bleach and wipe down the workstations before use and after. Another way to prevent DNA transfer from analysts to the samples is to wear personal protective equipment, such as lab coats, gloves, masks, hairnets, and beard guards. And a way to prevent transfer from sample to sample would be to frequently change gloves, as well as only have one sample open at a time.
Now, with your work at the lab, is there a review process that your work undergoes?
Yes, there is.
And can you describe that process to the jury?
Sure. So once I complete my work, the
Valhalla, can we get a rating on his neckbeard?
file undergoes 2 types of reviews. The first is a technical review, where another qualified analyst will take the file and they'll do their own independent assessment and make sure that they come up with the conclusions and that they agree with the conclusions that I reached. And they'll also make sure that all the protocols were followed and every decision is scientifically sound. Once that review is complete.
And just take this off. That little flimsy, because kind of like me, I can't grow anything except this. I'll just get some flimsy flims. So you just keep it tight. So take off the
Yeah, but
stranglers.
where would he find his jawline?
No, but it's not the jawline. I'm talking about cleaning up.
Well,
this part
yeah,
here.
but you were
Your
talking
chins.
about, cleaning up
Cheeks.
his neck.
Well, that's why you had the 2 fingers above the Adam's apple.
Yeah.
So
You got to put two fingers above your Adam's apple, and you're supposed to trim up.
Do
to
we
that
think
line
his
as well.
testosterone is high enough to have an Adam's apple?
it probably has a pharmaceutical grade testosterone if you need it.
He grows a
That's why
better
he
beard
has
than
a-
expert.
Well, and he does have that male pattern baldness that roid users get.
That's true.
Completed, it undergoes an administrative review, where another qualified analyst will then look through the file and they look for clerical errors, such as typos or missing page numbers or missing case numbers. Once those 2 reviews are completed,
Yeah,
the
I was more
results can
focused
then
on his
reported
tie
out.
than his beard.
Now, as a part of that
I don't know what
accreditation
exactly is
process that you were
happening
speaking
there, but I
about a
don't
few
like
moments ago, do you want to go anything called proficiency testing?
Yes, I do.
And can you explain to the jury what that proficiency testing process consists of?
Yeah, so a proficiency test is a test that's administered twice a year by an external vendor, and the results of this test are not known to the analyst at the time. And we basically treat it like it's a real case, where it undergoes the analysis process as if it were a real case. And this test is used to show that the analyst is demonstrates ongoing competency in the DNA analysis process. And successful completion of the test is required to maintain qualification as an analyst.
And what areas do you specifically undergo proficiency testing in?
DNA analysis.
And have you successfully completed each of those proficiency tests that you've taken?
Yes.
Oh, I could see
Now, Mr.
that.
Porto,
Betsy.
could you explain to the jury what exactly is DNA?
Yeah, so DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, and it's basically the building block that makes us who we are. We each have 2 copies of our DNA, one that we inherit from mom and one that we inherit from dad. And this combination makes sure that,
Move
barring
it
the
along,
exception of identical twins,
neckbeard.
we all have different DNA.
And is DNA the same in every cell of a person's body?
Yes, so what that means is if I were to take a blood sample and a saliva sample from the same person, the same DNA profile will be generated.
Now, you spoke a bit earlier
Not if
about
they're a chimera. Huh.
T-Rex Trucking and More, thank you for the super chat. To start day drinking, it's Friday, 5 p.m. is actually 8 a.m. at the Cape. No, as I have said before, no booze before the morning news. And since I watch Good Morning America, it goes to 11, and you take one off for daylight savings time. It's noon somewhere, so I start at 11 like a lady.
different steps
Thank
included
you,
in the DNA testing. If you could, just a little bit slower, go through each of those 4 steps again for the jury.
Sure. So like
Please
I said,
don't
it's a
go
4-step
slower.
process. So extraction,
Again?
quantitation,
Why are we
amplification, and
doing
detection.
this?
So
again?
extraction, we use chemicals and heat to burst open the cells to make that DNA available for use. Quantitation,
Between
step 2, we take a small sample
the
of that
science stuff
extracted DNA.
makes me
We use
want to
different set of chemicals and an instrument to estimate how much DNA is available for use. Amplification is the 3rd step, which I mentioned is the basically molecular photocopier, where it makes millions of copies of specific areas of the DNA. And then the 4th and last step is detection, where we run those amplified copies through an instrument and we generate the DNA profile as an electronic file on the computer.
Now, Mr. Porto, what is SDR?
So SDR stands for short tandem repeats, and they're the locations that we're making the millions of copies of.
Now, in your work at the lab, do you have something that's referred to as a known item?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury what a known item is?
Sure. So a known item is an item that's
Item
taken
you
directly
know.
from a person to be used as a reference sample, so we know what the source of that profile is.
And conversely, what is a questioned item?
A questioned item is an item that's taken, let's say, from a crime
Item
scene
you don't
where we don't
know.
know what the source is.
See?
Now, do you also have terminology within your lab as far as a parent versus a child item?
Yes, we do.
And can you explain how those labels are and how they reference to what you do in your work?
Sure. So a parent item is, for example, the original item, and the child is a sample of that item. So, for example, this box of tissues would be the parent item, and if you were to swab the outside, the swab would be the child item. So the box of tissues would receive, let's say, an item of 1-1. The swabbing of the outside would receive an item of 1-1.1.
You think he knows how to tie
Now, what are
that tie?
positive and negative controls?
Yeah. So a positive control is a control that has
Or does it
a known
stay
sample.
tied in his closet and he just loosens it up and puts it back on every time he needs to wear it?
He's
That's
just
what I
like
would
me.
do.
He keeps it tight. That's the easy thing because he got this
think he does.
cool mid-odds. Brendan, if he wasn't on claw time as well, he would be yelling about it because it's way too
terrible
loose.
knot. It's a terrible
Yeah, and
knot.
it's way too loose, and I don't think he buttoned his top button, and you need to do that with a tie. So I'm rating no.
As I said yesterday, he's not used to being around the living. We're working with the deep science people who don't people.
Yeah, he's
We went
the
to a
guy
store once. The sales
and-
guy knotted it on, and he's never unknotted it.
I think that's what it is. He takes it off, puts it in his closet on a coat hanger, keeps it nice and
I do
loose.
that.
I bet you
Because I have to go every time I use a tie. I have to go watch the YouTube video, and that's how you do it.
tying a tie is so easy. It's like
When I was in the
would
Navy, we
tell-
didn't have a tie on, so I never got any practice. We just had like a strip that you
like a handkerchief.
kind of, but we also had that, the Donald Duck thing that that was tied around your waist. Really annoying.
That thing's tied around your waist?
Yeah, the one that protects the collar of your seaman's blouse. That's just something you put on top of it, and then you tie it around. It's really annoying.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
With a known DNA profile that we use in every step of the DNA analysis process to make sure that each step and instrument worked as expected and properly. And then a negative control is a sample that has no DNA in it, only receives the chemicals that we use, and that's to ensure that the chemicals that we're using don't have any DNA inherent to them.
Now, when you as an analyst or a forensic scientist too are assigned work within the DNA unit, where do you retrieve that evidence from?
Yeah, so I retrieve it from a locked cold room that's only accessible via keycard.
Now, why are items kept in cold storage?
Yeah, the cold storage helps preserve the DNA for long-term storage.
And as far as the heat versus the cold, why is it that it's specifically kept, or why does the coldness of the storage room help preserve the item?
The cold can help prevent, let's say, growth of bacteria and mold that can degrade.
No, but they both sides agreed on it, so no conspiracies. It wasn't Trooper Proctor. Defense have agreed that it was that other guy.
DNA.
And what does heat do, conversely, in reference to an item of forensic value?
Heat can help degrade DNA and also promotes bacterial and mold growth that can further degrade that DNA.
Now, when you receive an item from the cold storage, how is that item typically packaged when you retrieve it from there?
Sure. So the item comes in these plastic, clear, transparent plastic sealed containers that has a label with a case number on it. And inside of that, each sample is within like a small plastic tube that has a label with that case number and item number.
Now, at some point, were you assigned to perform some work on a lab case number 22-02184 pertaining to this defendant, Karen Reed?
Yes, I did.
And what type of work in general terms were you assigned to do in this case?
I was assigned to do the DNA analysis process.
And that was on several items, is that correct?
Correct.
And could you explain to the jury the sort of process that you used to analyze evidence in this case?
Sure. So the case underwent the 4 steps that I explained before. So extraction, quantitation, amplification, and detection.
And there was a known standard that was done in this case, specifically in item number 8-1.1.1. Is that correct?
Correct.
And did another analyst test and report the results from the known blood standard from that item 8-1.1.1?
Correct.
And how is that done?
Yeah, so that undergoes the same process that I explained. It'll go through the 4 steps: extraction, quantitation, amplification, detection. And then the analyst that did the interpretation and reported that out, the known standard out, they went through the profile to make sure that it's one person or single source. And once that went through the review process that I explained, so technical and administrative review, and once that was all completed, the standard was available to be used for comparisons.
And to whom was that known standard identified as belonging to?
John O'Keefe.
Now, you use the word in there as far as a single source. Can you explain to the jury what your understanding of that term is based on your training and experience?
Sure. So a single source is just a DNA profile that has one contributor to it. So only one person contributed DNA to that profile.
What exactly is a DNA profile?
Yeah, so a DNA profile is basically the combination of all of the locations that we amplified during the 3rd step of the process. And it's basically, you can think of it as like a chart, like an EKG, where it has peaks and valleys, and each peak has a specific number, and the DNA profile is just a combination of all those numbers put together.
Now, can you explain to the jury in general terms, to start with, the process of comparison between a known standard and a questioned or unknown standard?
Sure. So first, I did the analysis on the question items. I did the 4 steps. I analyzed.
I thought we were going to come in with fireworks today. I thought we were going to get
once that was
the
completed,
motion.
I then used the standard that was available to me and compared them to all the profiles that were suitable for comparison.
Resolved.
Now, so starting with item 3-1.1.
Oh, finally an item.
That was a sample from taillight passenger.
And from a specific vehicle, is that correct?
Correct.
And what, if any, information were you given as to that vehicle that the swab from the taillight was from?
Do you mean like the license plate?
Yes.
Hey, and you?
Thank you.
Your Honor, with
Is
the
he
court's
done
permission,
yet?
This is a little detail towards the testimony.
I don't
vote.
have a problem. Does the defense object?
I'm more worried about Brennan going live.
So the license plate was 3G6684. I'm sorry, 3GC684.
Now, with reference to the
Docs.
swab from the taillight, were you able to generate a DNA profile from that item?
I was.
And from your comparative analysis from that question item to that of the known standard of John O'Keefe, what did you conclude?
So the DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 3 contributors, including male DNA. And the DNA profile from this item is at least, so sorry. I'll just restart. So the DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 3 contributors, including male DNA. And the DNA profile from this item is at least 510 non-alien times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe and 2 unknown individuals than if it originated from 3 unknown, unrelated individuals. This provides support for an inclusion.
Now, sir, what does that mean?
So an inclusion is basically when I look at the question DNA profile that was generated, and I compare it to the known DNA profile.
It means
and
John
the characteristics
touched his
of
own
the known
license
profile are
plate. That's
consistent
what
with
it
the characteristics
means.
observed in the question DNA profile. That's an inclusion.
His girlfriend's.
Now, as far as that number,
Yeah.
510 non-alien, how many zeros in that number?
So a non-alien is a 1 followed by 30 zeros.
Now, that profile, in addition to Mr. O'Keefe's profile, also had 2 unknown contributors, correct?
Correct.
Now, was that item also submitted to an outside vendor named Bodie Technologies for further analysis?
Correct.
And with reference to your comparative analysis from the profile from this item to Mr. O'Keefe profile, if you could again just expound upon what does inclusion mean?
Yeah, so an inclusion, I compared the known standard that I had available for use from John O'Keefe to the DNA profile generated from the taillight, and the DNA profile was consistent with the DNA profile that I observed in the questioned item, and that's what an inclusion means.
Now, regarding item 3-6, what is the description of that item?
Yeah, so 3-6 is a root end of hair from exterior passenger side rear panel.
And is that the same vehicle as far as the taillight sample?
Correct.
Now, with respect to hair in general, there's a root end and a shaft end, correct?
Correct.
And what limitations does your lab have with regard to DNA testing of hair?
So when we test hair, we're actually the root end of the hair. We're looking at any potential skin cells that might be attached to the root end. So that's where the DNA that we're looking for is coming from.
Nope.
And if there's not too many,
That we know.
Are you familiar with the term based on your training experience known as autosomal DNA?
Yes.
And can you describe for the jury what your understanding of that term is?
Yeah, so autosomal DNA is DNA that's located in the nucleus of the cell, and that's the DNA that we inherit from both mom and dad.
Now, are you also familiar, based on your training experience, with a term known as mitochondrial DNA?
Yes.
And can you please explain to the jury what your understanding of the term mitochondrial DNA is?
Yeah, so mitochondrial DNA is DNA that's found in the mitochondria of a cell.
Oh, we're caught up.
And we inherit that from the mother.
It may be somewhat evident, but could you please explain to the jury sort of the difference between autosomal DNA on the one hand and mitochondrial DNA on the other?
Yeah, so like I said, the
no.
autosomal DNA is the one that we have 2 copies of, where we inherit one from mom and one from dad. And then the mitochondrial DNA is a circular DNA that we just inherit from mom.
Now, is the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab equipped to perform mitochondrial DNA testing?
No, we're not.
Now, was the DNA extract from the hair also sent to that external vendor, Bodie Technologies in Lorton, Virginia?
I'm not sure if the extract was sent, but I know that the shaft of the hair was sent to Bodie.
Now, what testing did you
Can't send
perform
the
on that?
shaft without the tip.
I did the regular DNA analysis process on the root end of the hair.
And that was done prior to it being shipped to that external vendor, is that correct?
Correct.
And what conclusions were you able to draw from the testing that you did on the hair?
Yeah, so there was no human DNA detected, and STR analysis was not performed.
Now, what does that mean, sir?
Yeah, so it means that I didn't detect any human DNA. So there might be DNA on there, but it was below what our instrumentation could detect.
So we
What's
weren't
this
good
pipe
enough to
clip?
find the evidence. You had to send it outside.
Turning your attention to item 3-2.1.1. What is the description related to that item, sir?
It's a sample from the exterior of broken drinking glass.
And is there any further indication as far as the broken drinking glass, as far as where it was recovered?
Oh, yeah, 34 Fairview Road.
And were you able to generate a DNA profile from this item, the drinking glass?
Yes, I was.
And from your comparative analysis from this question item to that of the known standard of John O'Keefe, what did you conclude?
Yeah, so the DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 3 contributors, including male DNA. The DNA profile from this item is at least 530 non-alien times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe and 2 unknown individuals than if it originated from 3 unknown, unrelated individuals. This supports an inclusion.
This is the last time I'll ask you this, but just if you could reiterate to the jury,
I
what
doubt
does
it.
inclusion mean?
Yep, so an inclusion is when
And we
I
know
compared
from the
known
last
standard
trial
to
the
the
jury
question,
doesn't care
item,
when you say
and if the
nonillion,
profile
petillion,
in
they
the known
don't
standard
care
is
about
consistent
it.
with the profile
So
in
you
the question
don't have to say it
profile,
all the
that's
time,
an
Lally.
inclusion.
Just move on.
And that
But who are the 2 other people who touched the glass?
number again, as far as 530 non-alien,
Yeah, 3 guys,
how many
1
zeros
cup.
again in that number?
That's a 1 followed by 30 zeros.
So you just asked
Now,
again.
sir, if I could turn your attention to another item, 7-1.2.1. What is the description related to that item?
Sample from stain A on upper right leg of jeans.
And is there any further indication as to whom those genes belong to?
John O'Keefe.
Now, were you also able to generate a DNA profile from this item, the stain A on the upper right leg of Mr. O'Keefe's genes?
Yes, I was.
And from your comparative analysis from the question item to that of the known standard of John O'Keefe, what did you conclude with reference to that item?
The DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 3 contributors, including male DNA. Contributor 1 is suitable for comparison, and due to limited information, contributors 2 and 3 are not suitable for comparison. The DNA profile from this item is at least 570 non-alien times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe.
Mo, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Do you think anywhere in the camera shot right now, perhaps festooning your body, you have left a little bit of DNA on any of your clothing ever in your life?
Yeah, I would assume that being close to my skin, my clothing's gonna have my DNA on it.
So when Mr. roughly 1975, either stockbroker in a movie or serial killer is finding John's DNA on his own clothes, are you impressed?
No.
Wouldn't that give you reason, especially when it's on the upper thigh where there's multiple DNA strands? Wouldn't that, as a police officer, make you think, maybe we should get some court orders for some bugle swaps instead of just have exclusion swaps on the police officers?
Except Baker, Jen told them that she probably hit her, so why look at any other evidence? I mean, they weren't told to look at evidence. They were told to find someone to look at the evidence.
Yeah.
Pocket evidence, if you will. Binder evidence, allegedly. Ghosts appearing on cameras.
There's no difference for whatever vehicle carries the DNA.
And 2 unknown individuals than if it originated from 3 unknown, unrelated individuals. This provides support for an inclusion.
Thank you, sir. Now, turning your attention to item 7-1.3.1, what is the description related to that item?
Sample from stain B on upper right leg of jeans.
And same jeans as the previous item?
Yes.
Now, were you able to generate a DNA profile from this item, stain B, on the upper right leg of the jeans of Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes, I was.
And from your comparative analysis from this questioned item to that of the known standard of John O'Keefe, what did you conclude?
Yep, so the DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 3 contributors, including male DNA. The DNA profile from this item is...
No DNA was apprehended from anyone other than Trooper Bukaki and Trooper Proctor to be excluding DNA.
At least... The DNA profile from this item is at least 660 non-alien times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe and 2 unknown individuals than if it originated from 3 unknown, unrelated individuals. This provides support for an inclusion.
Now, sir, with reference to item 7-1.4.1, and again, these items with the dash and the point, is that what you're referring to earlier as the parent-child relationship between items?
Yes.
And what is the description for 7-1.4.1?
Sample from stain C on upper right leg of jeans.
Now, were you able to generate a DNA profile from this item from stain C on the upper right leg of Mr. O'Keefe's jeans?
Yes, I was.
And from your comparative analysis of this question item stain C to that of the known standard of John O'Keefe, what did you conclude?
The DNA profile is a mixture of at least 2 contributors, including male DNA. Contributor 1 is suitable for comparison. Due to limited information, contributor 2 is not suitable for comparison. The DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 2 contributors. The DNA profile from this item is at least 830 non-alien times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe and an unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unknown, unrelated individuals. This provides support for an inclusion.
Now, sir,
I know it's a stupid thing to bring up, but because this is just science googly-gook, Alessi needs to say, so what you're testifying to is John's DNA was on his clothes. Would you have expected any DNA sample from anywhere on John's clothes to contain John's DNA? Yes. In how many other cases would you expect to be mixture of DNA in the areas that you tested? So people will sit and think like we do. Yeah, 2 other people's DNA? Again, if it's Karen's, we saw her rub up against him. Remember, she hated him so much that she was hanging on to him all night, and she really wanted to kill him. That's why she constantly was touching him. I've seen that in women before. And you need to ask the jury so they'll snap onto it, because right now you're just hearing big numbers and thinking, oh, that sounds important. But in reality, it's really stupid to say, I found DNA from the guy wearing the clothes. Because
Yeah, especially if
else?
he was bleeding. I mean, and if they were reddish brown stains, I would assume that he would be a contributor. What I wouldn't assume is that there'd be 2 to 3 other contributors.
Again, if Karen, because they were rubbing up, there's transfer DNA, if she was rubbing his thighs or against him, that could leave some DNA, but 2 other people, I know they were in a social gathering, but it's 9 nontillion proves it's John. Yeah, so what? It was his pants, you idiot.
With reference to item 7-1.5.1, what was the description of that?
Sample from stain
Mostly
D
on
on
the dark
upper
web.
right leg of jeans.
Now, were you able to generate a DNA profile from this item from stain D on the upper right leg of Mr. O'Keefe's jeans?
Yes, I was.
And from your comparative analysis from this item to the known standard of John O'Keefe, what did you conclude?
The DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 3.
Mo, did you know Pure Blood is state paid to go around claiming everyone else is state paid? He is actually on the team of. He was hired with Brennan to try and ruin the case. So he will go around in chats all day long saying everyone else is state paid because.
So I have a couple questions on this logic pattern. So the state was smart enough, these people that can't get their timeline right after 3 years were forward planning enough that they planted someone in the defense, and the defense, who has been dogged by, allegations of underhandedness all the time, didn't do, research on this lawyer that just offered his spare time.
Yes.
So people are both mad, evil geniuses and functionally latent French.
Exactly. And apparently Aiden is also paid because he's making sure no free speech anyway. Even though he was the guy who hired Mike Randazza, who just won in the First Amendment zone. I think, Mo, would you agree with me?
Yes.
Pure Blood needs to sit on the cock chair and have a timeout.
Yeah, there's a difference between just being a, like,
Stupid
be a
person.
funny troll. Be a funny
Yeah,
troll.
be funny.
I mean,
Be Kimmy. Be Nima. This is just retarded. Just give them a long weekend. I think I come back Monday.
Contributors, including male DNA. The DNA profile from this item is at least 670 non-million times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe and 2 unknown individuals than if it originated from 3 unknown, unrelated individuals. This provides support for an inclusion.
Now, sir, did you also do some testing on...
Again, there's no DNA findings pointing to anything suspect. His DNA was on his girlfriend's car. His DNA was on his own clothes. The question will be, why didn't you try? Well, we hadn't gotten any samples. Would the police normally give you exclusion samples or other samples from people at the crime scene? Yes. You weren't given any in this case? No. Thank you. You don't need a rebuttal witness. John's DNA was found on John's clothes.
Shocking discovery.
Yeah, it has nothing. Nothing.
The clothes he was wearing at the time.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I'm verklempt. Talk amongst yourselves. This is news.
And item 7-1.6.1.
Yes, I did.
And what was the description associated with that item?
Sample from stain E on upper right leg of jeans.
And were you able to generate a DNA profile from that item, stain E, on the upper right leg of Mr. O'Keefe's jeans?
Yes, I was.
And from your comparative analysis from that...
You will never know because there was no DNA swaps done on anyone else than Proctor and Bukaki.
Question item to the known standard of John O'Keefe. What did you conclude?
The DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 2 contributors, including male DNA. Contributor 1 is suitable for comparison. Due to limited information, contributor 2 is not suitable for comparison. The DNA profile from this item is at least 1.0 decillion times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe and an unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unknown, unrelated individuals.
Well, he's going to
This
ask
provides
what a
support for an
decillion
inclusion.
is.
I used a different number there as far as a decillion. How many
Mo,
zeros?
you
is a
spoke
decillion?
this into
Yeah, a
existence.
decillion is a 1 followed by 33 zeros.
33-0.
Now, with each of those items that you just testified about, as far as the
That's
These
as little
numbers are
F
so
as I give.
astronomically large that they have to be made up right, like they don't actually mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. In Denmark, we just say more than in a million. Because we are 5 million people, so the likelihood, as long as it's over 1 in a million, it's so high, it statistically couldn't be someone else.
So you're saying if you're a foreigner in Denmark, you got a better chance of getting away with the DNA proving
No,
crime?
because they'll still test it and say it's more than 1 million times likely compared to anyone else in Denmark. We wouldn't go and say, hey, by the way, can we check the DNA in America? We'll just check it against other people in Denmark, and if it doesn't work out, then your ass will fry.
Snipe hunter. If it was only 32, I wouldn't believe it.
Yeah.
jeans, the question items from the stains on Mr. O'Keefe's jeans, those were each located on the right leg, correct?
Correct.
Now, did you also
Are you trying to
perform
say
some
that
analysis on item
little
7-1.7.1?
cut on his knee did all of those
What is the description associated
stains?
with that item?
Sample from unstained areas of the exterior of jeans.
Now, were you able to generate a DNA profile from that item, from the unstained areas of the exterior of Mr. O'Keefe's jeans?
I was.
And from your comparative analysis from this questioned item to the known standard of John O'Keefe, what did you conclude?
The DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 4 contributors, including male DNA. The DNA profile from this item is at least 53 septillion times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe and 3 unknown individuals than if it originated from 4 unknown, unrelated individuals. This provides support for an inclusion.
And again, sir, with that number, as far as 53 septillion times more likely, how many zeros in a septillion?
A septillion is a 1 followed by 24 zeros.
That's not enough. That's not
Yeah.
enough.
33.
Sir, if I could
Also-
turn your attention to
Damn it.
what's listed as number 12 in your report, but item 7-18.4.1. Did you do some testing on that item as well?
Yes.
And what was the description associated with that?
Sample from stain C on top front of Gray's long sleeve shirt.
And the gray long sleeve shirt, is that attributed as belonging to a specific person?
Yes, John O'Keefe.
And
This guy
were you
wants
able
to know if
generate
you
a DNA
have a
profile
minute
from
to
that
talk
item,
about your Lord and Savior,
specifically
Jesus
sample from stain
Christ.
C on the top front of the gray long sleeve shirt of Mr. O'Keefe?
I was.
And his
from your
amazing
comparative analysis
journey
from that
to
questioned item,
Missouri.
from the shirt to the known standard of John O'Keefe, what did you conclude?
So the male
Jesus
DNA
went to
profile
Missouri?
was interpreted as originated from a single contributor. The DNA profile
LDS.
from this item is at least 58 octillion times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe than if it originated from an unknown, unrelated individual. This provides support for an inclusion.
He believes in
And again, sir,
science,
that
so
number
he
is far
can't
as
be
58 octillion times more
offended.
likely. How many zeros in an octillion?
So an octillion is a 1 followed by 27 zeros.
This
So I
guy
can
makes
take you
his
down
own
to,
board games.
Listed as 15 in
Guaranteed.
your report, but did you do some testing on item 7-18.14.1?
This guy has made his own Dungeons and
And what was the
Dragons
description
based on
associated
this
with that item?
case.
So
Changed
sample
my
from stain
mind.
L on back bottom right of gray long
He's-
sleeve shirt.
And were you able to generate a DNA profile from that item?
He has his own
And
lightsaber
from your
at home.
comparative analysis with reference to that item,
From Star
sample
Wars
stain
theory.
L on the back bottom right of the gray
There's
long sleeve
nothing
shirt,
abnormal
with-
about that. Okay.
in
Mo.
comparison to the
Nothing.
DNA profile.
Well,
from the
I
known
want
standard of
one.
John
That's
O'Keefe,
why
what
I'm
did you-
jealous.
So the DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 2 contributors, including male DNA. The DNA profile from this
Wake
item is at
me
least
up when he's
1.0
done
decillion times more
telling me
likely
John's
if it originated
DNA
from
is
John
on his
O'Keefe and an unknown
clothes.
individual than if it originated from 2 unknown, unrelated individuals. This provides support for an inclusion.
Now, sir, did you also perform some analysis on an item numbered 7-18.17.1?
I did.
And what was the description associated with that item, sir?
Sample from unstained areas of exterior of gray long sleeve shirt.
And similarly, were you able to generate a DNA profile from that item, the sample from the unstained areas of the exterior of the gray long sleeve shirt of Mr. O'Keefe?
I was.
And from your comparative analysis from that question item to that of the known standard of John O'Keefe, what did you conclude?
The DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 2 contributors, including male DNA. Contributor 1 is suitable for comparison. Due to
Mr.
limited
Lally,
information,
let's
contributor
move
2
this
is not suitable for
along.
comparison. The DNA profile from this item is at least 960 non-alien times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe and an unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unknown, unrelated individuals. This provides support for an
On
inclusion.
a side note, do you think he has someone in a well?
Thank you, sir. I'm going to group a couple, 4 separate items from your report, starting with what's listed in your report as number 9 is item 7-3.1.
Or is he more of the, he
What
has
is the description
a
associated with that
demonic
item, sir?
puppet that
sample from
asks you
stain
if
B
you
on
want to
bright
play a
step of sleep.
game?
And 11 from your report, you also did some analysis on item 7-18.3.1. Is that correct?
Correct.
And what was the description associated with that?
Sample from stain B on top front of gray long sleeve shirt.
And item 7-18.7.1, do you see that as well?
Yes.
And what was the description associated with that item?
Sample from stain F on top front of gray long sleeve shirt.
And lastly, in this group, item 7-18.8.1, what was the description associated with that?
Sample from stain G on back left sleeve of gray long sleeve shirt.
And with respect to each of those last 4 samples from those items, were you able to generate a DNA profile with respect to each of those 4?
Profiles were generated from them.
And what
Profiles?
did you conclude based on the generation of those profiles with those 4 items?
Yeah, so the profiles that were generated were not suitable for comparison.
And if you could explain briefly to the jury, when you say not suitable for comparison, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so for 7-3.1, it was a mixture of at least 5 contributors. And at the DNA unit, we validated, basically we tested and make sure that our protocols we can only interpret mixtures of up to 4 contributors. So I determined that there were 5 contributors, so that makes it too complex for us to do comparisons to it. So it's not suitable for comparison for that reason. And the other 3 items, due to the quality of the profile, they were not suitable for comparison. And basically what that means is that there were such low amounts of DNA that was in the sample that there was a lack of information from the profiles themselves, so they weren't really suitable for comparisons.
And just to be clear, the item that you're referring to with the 5 possible contributors, that's a shoot, correct?
Correct.
Now, if I could turn your attention in your report to what you have listed as number 10, there are a number of different items listed there, correct?
Correct.
And starting with item 7-17.2.1, what is the description associated with that?
Sample from stain A on top front left of orange t-shirt.
And 7-17.3, what is the description associated with that?
Sample from stain B on top of front left of orange t-shirt.
And item 7-17.4.1, what is the description associated with that?
Sample from stain C on top front left of orange t-shirt.
And item 7-17.5.1, what is the description associated with that item?
Sample from stain D on
He's
front
still
bottom
here?
right of orange t-shirt.
Yeah.
And item 7-17.6.1,
Found any DNA
what
not
is the
belonging to
description
John?
associated with that?
Sample from stain
No.
E on back left
Well,
shoulder.
there,
of orange t-shirt.
yes, but we don't
And
know
so
who's
each of those respectively were samples.
Yes, we have the audio sped up because he will just keep saying that John's DNA is on John's clothes.
There's multiple
Taken from
contributors. The only
t-shirt
one
in
they
this
have
correct?
positively
Now, turning your
identified is
attention to
John.
item 7-18.2.1,
On everything
what is the
that
description
John
associated
O'Keefe's
with that?
touched.
Sample from stain A
Makes
on right
perfect
sleeve of
sense.
gray long sleeve shirt.
And item 7-18.5.1, what is the description associated with that?
Sample from stain D on center front of gray long sleeve shirt.
And item 7-18.6.1, what is the description associated with that?
And
Sample
mind you,
from
all
stain E
the
on center front of gray long
DNA
sleeve shirt.
swabs were rubbed
And
all
item
over everything. So who knows
7-18.9.1,
where any
did
of
you
it came from?
generate a profile from that item as
Yeah.
well?
Yes.
And what is the description associated with that?
Sample from stain H1 on back left of back left of gray long sleeve shirt.
And item 7-18.10.1, what is the description associated with that?
Sample from stain H2 on back left of gray long sleeve shirt.
And item 7-18.11.1, what is the description associated with that?
Sample from stain I on back right shoulder of gray long sleeve shirt.
And item 7-18.12.1, what is the description
Wait a
associated
minute,
with that?
pause it.
Sample from stain J.
Can I just let it run and just put the volume down, or else we have never caught
Yes,
Oh,
yes, you can.
No, yeah, that's fine. Didn't she say that all of the stains on the sleeve and the back, she just kind of swabbed all of them and didn't label them, didn't
Yeah.
differentiate?
No, this is the long shirt sleeve is when she did it.
Oh, okay.
And from your comparative analysis of each of the DNA profiles from those items to the known standard of John O'Keefe, what did you conclude?
So the male DNA profile was interpreted as originating from a single contributor. The DNA profile from these items is at least 490 octillion times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe than if it originated from an unknown, unrelated individual. This provides support for an inclusion.
Now, again, if you could just remind the jury, when you say single source contributor, what does that mean?
Yeah, so a single source profile is a profile that has one contributor to it. It's like one person contributed DNA to that profile.
And with respect to the number as far as 490 octillion times more likely, how many zeros are in that number?
So an octillion is a 1 followed by 27 zeros.
Swaps.
Now, lastly, sir, did you perform any analysis with reference to items numbered 8-2 and 8-3?
I did.
And what were the descriptions respectively for items 8-2 and 8-3?
So item 8-2 was right hand fingernail clippings from John O'Keefe, and item 8-3 were left hand fingernail clippings from John O'Keefe.
So fingernail clippings from both the right and left hand of Mr. O'Keefe.
Correct.
And were you able to generate a DNA profile from those item numbers, the right and left hand fingernail clippings of Mr. O'Keefe?
I was.
And based on, from your comparative analysis of the DNA profile from the right and left hand fingernail clippings, both.
He has nothing to do with doing any testing. He just looks at the results. It was the lady who was here yesterday, no, the day before, who did all the swaps.
Mr. O'Keefe, taken in conjunction with the known standard of John O'Keefe, what did you conclude?
Yeah, so the male DNA profile was interpreted as originating from a single contributor, and the DNA profile from these items is at least 490 octillion times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe than if it originated from an unknown, unrelated individual. This provides support for an inclusion.
About that.
So with respect to each the right and left hand fingernail clippings of Mr. O'Keefe, both of those were identified by you or your analysis as a single source contributor, correct?
Correct.
And they were each 490 octillion times more likely to have originated from John O'Keefe than from an unknown, unrelated individual. Is that correct?
Correct.
Timu Bob Ross.
Bobby Ross.
Thank you, sir. I have nothing further on.
You had
Stanley
nothing.
Ross.
Did they ever?
Oh, they're
take
giving
a
this to
DNA
Yannetti because it's just nothing.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Did they ever take a DNA sample from Karen?
Mr. Porto, I would like to start.
From
Karen.
yeah, they do that from the hospital, I think. When
I mean,
she's
not that it would
a
matter,
suspect,
right?
I think they do it when she's a suspect. They will, but I also think they actually did a bugle swab on her, but I'm not 100% sure.
By
Yeah,
asking
they would
you
have had to
about
get a search
item
warrant for it. They
3-1.1,
search
No,
warrant
they
for
can
your
ask for it.
DNA.
as a sample
They can
from
ask
the
Oh,
passenger
and she might have
side taillight
consented.
of the vehicle. Can you orient yourself in your report to that item?
Yes.
And that, of course, was the passenger side taillight that was attached to the vehicle, correct?
Correct.
You were never
There's no
asked
DNA found
to do any
inside.
DNA comparison on any pieces of taillight connected with this case, correct?
Let me check my other report.
Sir,
it's like,
did
I
you
promise
test
you didn't.
For tail-
plastic? It's not a hard question.
Holly, don't waste any time going back listening to this. John O'Keefe's DNA was on John O'Keefe's clothes. There's a lot of other DNA we don't know which is whose it was.
Like there was another item that was item 3-3.1, which was sampled from apparent glass on rear bumper, if that's what you're referencing.
Okay, so if I suggested to you that the taillight was plastic, that glass wouldn't have been the taillight, correct?
I don't have, that's beyond my scope of testing.
Gotcha. Okay. With regard to the passenger side taillight, you found that there were 3 contributors of DNA to that taillight attached to the vehicle, correct?
Correct.
One of those contributors appeared to be John O'Keefe. Is that fair to say?
He was included
All
to
right.
the profile.
With regard to the other 2 contributors, who were they?
They could be anybody.
Were you ever asked to compare DNA samples from either Canton Police Detective Kevin Albert or Canton Police Chief Kenneth Berkowitz to the DNA profile that you analyzed from that passenger side taillight?
I was not.
Now, with regard to the broken drinking glass, which is item 3-2.1.1, do you see that in your report?
I do.
With regard to that, you came up with a DNA profile that also had 3 contributors, correct?
Correct.
One of those contributors appeared to be John O'Keefe, correct?
He was included, correct.
Who were the other 2 contributors?
I don't know. They could be anybody.
Were you ever asked
Keep
with
making him
regard
say
to
that.
broken drinking glass to compare the DNA
Keep
profile
making him say,
that you
I don't know, it
analyzed?
could be anybody. Keep making him
Yeah,
say
yeah,
that.
that's what I said while you were outside. That they need to put this in because he's sitting there saying quadrillion, pedillion. Just a simple thing. You didn't test shit because you weren't asked to do
Yeah.
it. Again, they never investigated this crime.
With the DNA of either Boston Police Sergeant Brian Albert or ATF agent Brian Higgins.
I was not.
Now, with regard to 7.1.2.1, or maybe it's 7-1.2.1, that's the stain A from the upper right leg of the jeans.
Correct.
All right. And you were aware, you were told that those were the jeans that John O'Keefe was wearing on the morning in question when he was found?
Based on the sample description, that's what it seems.
All right. And it turned out that his DNA was on his own jeans, correct?
He was included in the profile.
And that was unsurprising to you, correct? And with regard to that item, you found that there were 3 contributors of DNA, correct?
Correct.
With John O'Keefe being one of them.
He was included in the profile, yes.
And who were the other 2?
I don't know. They could be anybody.
Let's move on to stain B, also from the upper right leg of the jeans. That is 7-1.3.1. You see that in your report?
I do.
When you found a DNA profile, how many contributors of DNA were there?
3 contributors.
All right. And again, this was John O'Keefe's jeans, correct?
Based on the description, yes.
So he was one of the 3 contributors.
He was included in the profile, yeah.
Who were the other 2?
I don't know. They could be anybody.
Moving on to stain C from the upper right leg of the jeans. 7-1.4.1. You see that in your report?
I do.
With regard to the DNA profile that you analyzed there, how many contributors of DNA were there to that profile?
At least 2, and it was interpreted as 2 contributors.
And again, this is the same pair of jeans that he was found in, correct?
Based on the description, yes.
And you said at least 2 contributors. It actually could have been more than 2.
Based on our protocols, I had to call it 2, and we determined it as 2, but it could be more than 2, yes.
Okay. Well, let's pay attention to the one that was not John O'Keefe, at least that one. Who contributed that?
Again, if you ask them to, they might do it. But if you don't ask them to do it, I don't know if they have a male or female profile on it. But that question should be asked.
DNA to his pants.
Yeah.
I don't know. It could be anybody.
Moving on to stain D, which is 7-1.5.1. And if I can just put my glasses on to make sure I've read my own writing correctly. Actually, is it 7-15-1? Did I get that wrong the first time?
D?
I'm sorry?
Do you mean
Stain
stain
D,
D?
stain D.
Stain D is 7-1.5.
Oh, I had it right the first time. Okay. With regard to that stain, you also got a DNA profile. And how many contributors were there to that DNA profile?
I interpret it as 3 contributors.
And again, this is John O'Keefe's genes, correct?
Correct.
He was one of the contributors to his own genes, correct?
He was included in the profile.
And with regard to that stain on the upper right leg of his genes, who contributed the DNA to the, who are the other 2 contributors of DNA to that stain?
I don't know. They could be anybody.
And
Thank
then
you,
finally, with regard to that upper right leg of the genes, there was also a stain E, correct?
Correct.
How many contributors did you find to that DNA profile?
2 contributors.
One of which was John O'Keefe to his own genes, correct?
He was included, yes.
And who was the other contributor to that stain on the genes?
It could be anybody. I don't know.
And by the way, just for the record, that was 7.1.6.1?
7-1.6.
7-1.6.1. Thank you, sir. Okay, now, with regard to the unstained area of the exterior of the genes, do you see item 7-1.7.1?
Yes.
You found a DNA profile with regard to that unstained area as well, correct?
Correct.
How many contributors of DNA were there to that unstained area of the genes?
I interpret it as 4 contributors.
And John O'Keefe was one of those, correct?
He was included in the profile.
His own genes.
Based on the description, yes.
That
Who
he
are
was
the other
wearing.
3 contributors to that DNA profile?
I don't know. It could be anybody.
And before we move on to the sneaker, I just wanted to ask you a question about the passenger side taillight that I neglected to ask you. That was the one where there were 3 contributors, correct? And again, I'm going back to 3-1.1.
Correct.
Sorry to skip around, sir.
Okay.
I'm not trying to make this
all
any
right.
more confusing than it is. With regard to the passenger side taillight and that DNA profile, are you able to determine when that DNA was deposited on the passenger side taillight that was attached to the vehicle?
No, I'm not.
Are you able to testify with any certainty that it was deposited there, say, on January 28th or 29th of 2022?
Nope.
No, I can't.
So consistent with your analysis of it, are you able to say whether it occurred prior to January 28th of 2022?
No, I can't.
He is
Were you
not.
aware that that vehicle was John O'Keefe's girlfriend's vehicle?
I was not.
Were you provided any information about just how often he had been in and around that vehicle prior to January 28th of 2022? So moving
the
on
objection
to
for you there.
7-3.1,
Outside the
which
scope, maybe?
was the right instep of the sneaker, correct? You see that in
Correct.
your report?
Yep.
With regard to that particular stain, you noted how many contributors of DNA?
Yeah, it was interpreted as at least 5 contributors.
And with
That's so weird that, well, again, I said it before, men go to the urinals. That could be where DNA comes from. But 5 different DNAs on shoes.
That does seem a bit much, don't it? Like how many?
Where-
I don't
where-
think I've. I
What's the
can't
instep?
imagine. I don't think I've touched another person's shoes in probably years, right? Other than maybe Mrs.
Yeah.
Wallace. Like I don't.
But
you know,
what's the instep of a shoe? Is that the inside?
I would think the
The-
instep would be the
this part,
inside. I don't think
right?
they would swab, or would they swab like around the neck? But the instep is where your arch is.
Isn't
Yeah.
it like the? So if these are your feet, right? Isn't it
Yeah.
like this part of your foot right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's even for I've seen men at the urinals who have had a few drinks. That seems unlikely that that would hit there. If it was on top, on the toe
Well,
part of the shoe. Mo, you live
Yeah.
with men, you know how it is. Sometimes it's 2-3 streams at one time, and if we're a little drunk and we have to do the swaying motion, don't worry about it.
I call those self-service peas.
They need to exclude Farrell's DNA too. That's all over every male in the US and vice versa. Gross, she needs to stop examining Sergeant Bukaki. Farrell, do better, girl. Thank you, Brennan.
Aim higher.
Yeah, Farrell, you can do better.
when you have interpreted it as at least 5 contributors, what does that do to your ability to find out who contributed that DNA?
So based on our protocols, we're not able to do any comparisons to any mixtures that are 5 or more contributors. So it's not suitable for comparisons.
Okay, which means that with regard to the sneaker, at least, you couldn't even say whether John O'Keefe's DNA was on it, correct?
Correct.
And with regard to all 5, do you have any idea who contributed the DNA to that sneaker?
No, I don't.
Now, moving on to, I just have a couple more for you, sir. Moving on to what is labeled as stain L, which is 7-18.14.1, I believe. Do you see that in your report?
I do.
And that was a stain on the back bottom of his long sleeve shirt, correct?
Correct.
And were you told that the long sleeve shirt was his outer clothing when he was found?
I don't believe so.
How many contributors to that stain on the back bottom of his long sleeve shirt did you find in that DNA profile?
I interpret it as 2 contributors.
And did you make any match with regard to either of those contributors or both?
I did comparisons, and John O'Keefe was included as one of the contributors.
Okay, so John O'Keefe was a contributor of DNA to his own long sleeve shirt, correct?
Based on the descriptions, correct.
All right, and whose other DNA was on that shirt?
I don't know.
And then finally, with regard to 7-18.17.1, that was an unstained area of the exterior of that shirt, correct? That same long sleeve shirt.
Correct.
And you tested that and got a DNA profile, correct?
Correct.
How many contributors were there to that DNA profile?
I interpret it as 2 contributors.
Was John O'Keefe one of them?
He was included as one of the contributors.
Okay, so his DNA was found on his own shirt, correct?
Based on the description, correct.
And who contributed the other DNA profile to John O'Keefe's sweatshirt?
I don't know.
With regard to any
How is
of
this a
the
case?
stains on the upper right leg of the jeans, I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that you've discussed here today. Were you ever asked to compare the DNA profile with the DNA profiles of either Brian Higgins or Brian Albert?
I was not.
And your answer was you were not?
I was not.
Did anybody ever provide you with DNA profiles of Brian Higgins or Brian Albert?
Sustained tonight.
Why are they not allowed to ask that question? Well, they can ask any DNA test to
I may
exclude.
have one moment, Judge.
Yes.
Because it's terrible for my Hanky's case.
But they should be allowed to ask if he was ever asked to exclude or include other DNA profiles.
They
Well, he
should
was
be
though,
allowed
right?
to.
They provided Yuri and Proctor, and
Yeah.
I'm sure she'd be able to.
I just have one more
she'd
question
let him
for you,
say
Mr. Porto, and
that.
I do want to thank you for answering all my questions
Sure.
here today. You wrote reports on your analysis of all the items and the work that you did on this case,
I did.
and you are directed, pursuant to protocol, to address those reports to somebody, correct?
Correct.
Who was it that you sent the reports to in this case?
Trooper Proctor.
Did you send those reports to Michael Proctor?
Sustained. Jurors, strike the question.
I have nothing further. Thank you, sir.
Why are they not allowed to ask that? He's the lead investigator.
Yes.
Oh shit. He's the case agent. Okay.
Mr. Porto, based on your training and experience and years of doing DNA testing at the lab, when it comes to samples from items of clothing, is it uncommon or common to have multiple contributors?
That depends. It can happen,
Objection.
but possible, yes.
Speculation. You have to.
Is
be
it something
complete.
that's a complete anomaly?
I wouldn't say so, no.
Now, turning your attention back to item 3-1.1, that's the sample from the passenger side taillight of the defendant's vehicle, correct?
Correct.
And Mr. O'Keefe was found to, his known DNA profile was found to be an inclusion for the DNA profile from the swab from the defendant's passenger side taillight, correct?
He was included in the profile, yes.
And to what statistical, what is the number associated with that inclusion?
It doesn't matter, you effing idiot. It's his girlfriend's car. It would be the same as the statistical likelihood that his DNA would be on his pants. But I hate that this is how they try to solve their case. If it's in a garage where there's not
In
a lot
his
of room,
garage. In John
his
O'Keefe's garage. Yes.
and it's her car, and he walks past it, there will be transfer DNA on that car. There's my DNA is on Valhalla's car
Facts. Katie.
because when we said goodbye to each other, droplets might have sprayed.
Well, and wasn't John a cop? And don't they typically touch the back of your vehicle to have fingerprints there? I mean, is that something that could be a habitual habit? Because he,
Very
I
well
don't
could.
think he ever really was a highway patrol officer. I don't think it's if you're working inner cities, you do it as much. But yeah, normally doing
Fair
traffic
point.
stop, they'll do the pat the driver's tail light in case anything bad happens. But again, we saw that garage. It's a 2-door garage, but I think there's a vintage car in the other one. So every time he got out of the car, had to get around there. The kids were there. There will be a DNA transfer. It's not and again, there's no DNA on the tail light. It's the outside housing. There's no pieces of plastic with his DNA on it.
The DNA profile from this item is 510 non-million times more likely to have originated from John O'Keefe and 2 unknown individuals than if it originated from 3 unknown unrelated individuals.
And Mr. Porter, if I could turn you back to number 10 in your report, there's a number of different items listed there, correct?
Correct.
And as far as the items listed associated with various stains on various areas of Mr. O'Keefe's orange T-shirt and gray long sleeve shirt, there's about 13 different DNA profiles that you generated in reference to those items, correct?
Correct.
And from those 13 different items, they're all
this is
from a
Old
single
Spice.
contributor. Is that correct?
Correct. They were interpreted as originated from a single contributor.
And as far as the DNA profile, your comparison of each of those 13 different stains on the orange T-shirt and the gray long sleeve shirt, what were your conclusions again as your comparison with the known standard of John O'Keefe?
Yeah, so the profile was interpreted as originated from a single contributor, and the DNA profile from
his
these items
shirt.
is at least 490 octillion times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe than if it originated from an unknown, unrelated individual. This
On
provides
his
support for an inclusion.
clothes.
And lastly, with reference to the fingernail clippings from both the right hand and the left hand of Mr. O'Keefe, those were also your analysis provided for inclusion of Mr. O'Keefe's known DNA standard, correct?
He was included in the profile, correct?
And again, the profile from both the right hand and the left hand fingernail clippings was a single source contributor, correct?
Sustained.
How many sources were associated with those?
Sustained.
Nothing further.
Okay, you all set, Mr. Nettie?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You are all set, Mr. Porter. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. Who is the next witness?
I'm going to call Ashley Valier to stand.
Who?
Ashley Valier. I feel like I remember this name.
Oh, was she one of the chicks that glued together the taillight?
Could be. Yes, that's exactly who this is. She put all the pieces
All right,
together.
Mr. Lally, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Well, it's
Good morning, Ms.
easy
Witt.
when you find the
morning.
pieces
Could you
together.
please introduce yourself to the jury, spelling your last name for the court?
My name is Ash Valier, spelled Vallier.
And where do you work?
I work at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory.
I really want to
And
hear
where did you
something
go to
from
school?
Katie Lang right now.
I got
No
my
reason.
bachelor degree in biochemistry and cell biology from UC San Diego and master degree in
I'm just
biomedical
thinking,
forensic
what is
sciences from
Mrs.
Boston
Flux
University.
doing?
Now, following your education, where did you go to work from there?
Directly after I got my degree at Boston University, I worked at the Broad Institute.
What did you do at the Broad Institute?
I did quality control checks of items that potentially could be tested for pharmaceutical use.
How long have you worked at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory?
I actually
A
like
little over
this
6
chick,
years.
if I remember
Now,
right.
is the state lab credited?
It is
And by whom?
I-
ANAB.
I like every lab tech. They don't have an agenda. They're not lying. They just get asked stupid questions that they have to ask. And again, I would probably, if I was Hank Brennan, have stood up on redirect and said, Mr. Brennan just asked you about finding. Would it be would it have surprised you if to find a boyfriend's DNA on his girl's car? Well, it's been real time for urban swan diving. I don't know what it is, but
What does ANAB stand for?
It stands for ANSI National Accreditation Board.
And the ANSI within the ANAB, what does that stand for?
That is another acronym that I don't recall right now.
Now, as part of that accreditation
That's like
process,
the military.
do you undergo any sort of type of
I like
proficiency
this chick.
testing?
She
do.
doesn't give a
And
shit.
can you explain to the
She's
jury
like, I don't know.
what that proficiency testing process consists of?
A proficiency test is a test that is given from an outside agency in
I
the
found
discipline
my
that you do casework in.
deployment papers
That you would
and
work
saw
through like a
my
normal
title.
case,
I
but it
couldn't
has
figure out
an
what my
end
job
expected
really
result
was.
at the end.
How often do you undergo proficiency
I think that's kitchen,
Every year.
driver.
In what areas do you specifically undergo proficiency testing in?
I've done proficiency tests in gunshot primer residue and physical match analysis.
And have you successfully completed each of those proficiency tests that you've taken?
I have.
Now, when you initially joined the State Police Lab, what was your position and title that you were hired for?
I was hired as a forensic scientist 1.
Now, can you please explain to the jury what your duties and responsibilities were as a forensic scientist 1?
So forensic scientist 1 is the introductory level.
Thank you, Brennan.
It's when you start your training in whatever discipline you're going to be trained in and quality control checks. After you've been at the laboratory for over a year and you're signed off to do casework, you become a forensic scientist 2.
And you're currently a forensic scientist 2, is that correct?
Yes.
What is the difference between a forensic scientist 1 and a forensic scientist 2 at Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab?
He just
Pay
said,
grade.
Forensic scientist 2 has been at the lab for over a year and can do casework.
Now, just in general terms, what does the trace unit do or examine within the State Police Crime Lab?
I'm part of the trace arson and explosives unit. So we analyze a wide range of pieces of evidence. So there's trace covers a lot of small things. So paint, fibers, glass, gunshot primer residue, physical matches. Arson covers fire debris evidence, and explosives covers explosives.
Now, specifically with reference to physical match analysis, can you explain to the jury, just in general terms at first, how is that analysis performed?
So physical match analysis is piecing broken things together to see if they were at once a single item. Generally, you look at the questioned item first, the item that you don't know specifically where it came from. Look at that, and then you would look at the known item, which is an item with a known source, like specifically like this window or like this vehicle. They're analyzed at separate times. And then if it looks like there could potentially be a physical match, you would analyze them together and see if they have a mechanical fit.
Now, when you retrieve items just in general to do some sort of physical match analysis, where do you get those items from?
We have evidence storage locations at the laboratory.
And how are they typically packaged when you receive them?
They can be packaged in cardboard boxes, brown paper bags, heat sealed plastic bags. It depends on the individual items.
And when you're doing this analysis as far as a physical match analysis, what do you do to your bench between your examination of separately packaged items?
Before I do any analysis, I bleach my bench, clean my tools, and then put down a fresh sheet of butcher paper.
And why do you do that?
To make sure everything's clean.
Now, again, speaking more in general terms, on what types of evidence can you perform a physical match analysis?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. In general terms, with your work within the lab, on what types of items can you perform a physical match analysis?
A lot. Anything that has a broken or irregular edge.
Would that include glass?
Yes.
Would that include plastic?
Yes.
What are some of the other things that would also include?
Any sort of like polymer, metals.
And when you're doing a physical match analysis, what instruments do you utilize in the course of that analysis?
Generally, I'll use a stereo zoom microscope. Depending on the size of the items compared, I can use other microscopes as well.
What is a stereo zoom microscope?
Stereo zoom microscope is a microscope that's mounted on a stand. So it gives a wider range of view that you can look at larger items.
And how are you using that specifically in your physical match analysis of, let's say, items of plastic?
I'll use it to look at the edges and see if there's any like defining characteristics along those broken edges.
Now, as you're going through your analysis, do you document your work as you go?
I do.
And how do you do that?
With handwritten notes and with photos.
Now, at some point, were you assigned to perform some work on lab case number 22-02184 pertaining to this defendant, Karen Reed?
Yes.
And what type of work were you?
Was she the one who kind of got into a fight over words with Janetti at the last trial?
Yes, she was kind of confused about something, and it
venereal something. He said something wrong, and then she just kept. Can you rephrase it? Can we rephrase it? Yeah, I remember her now.
She seemed very nervous the first time around. She seemed like she was very timid and
yeah.
And now she looks like she's had the niceness sucked out clinically.
She's been there for more than a year. She's seen shit, man. You don't understand,
had to deal
man.
with Wally.
You don't know what I've been through, man.
You weren't there.
Assigned to do in this case?
I was asked to do physical match analysis, and then later on, I was asked to look at do some trace recovery, look at some debris.
Starting with the physical match analysis, how many different items approximately were you asked to look at?
Over 10.
Several, fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. And how are each of those items packaged when you receive them?
So the questioned items were packaged in a large paper bag, and then each item was individually packaged in a smaller brown paper bag within that
I
container.
believe it was Janetti who
Again,
talked
just
to
in
her
general terms,
last
because
year.
you've used it a couple times. When you say questioned item versus known item, as it pertains to this analysis in this case, what were the questioned items generally, and what was the known item?
The question items were items labeled as coming from a road, and the known item was labeled as coming from a tail light from a vehicle.
A road? I thought these were all found in the lawn.
Now, in this case, did you perform your physical match analysis in the same manner that you've previously described based on?
I love y'all. You make me laugh. Well, Tammy, we love you too, and we appreciate that you're here watching and laughing along with us.
And I like that little gray flip in her.
I know,
think
I
it's
do
green.
like that little.
It's
I think it's
green.
green. I think.
I like
It could be.
I like it. I like this
because
chick. I
Yeah.
have fond memories of
Stop
her.
it.
She seems like a normal person just trying to do lab stuff, and now she's stuck in the circus that is.
I will
Yeah.
say I am jealous of her resting bee face. Like that's
yeah.
Olympic level ready. And she's not even trying. It's like when you walk by a pretty girl and she's not even wearing makeup and you're like, whatever, God, okay. Like she's not even trying and it's better than mine.
She's
And I
like,
work at mine every day.
They gave me a bunch of plastic. I put it back together, and now people are mad
Yeah,
at me.
why am I sitting here talking about what I did in school? Yeah, I do jigsaws. Come on now, don't make it fancy. But stop with the ums at every time. And why is she allowed to
At
wear
least
a
if-
pin on her jacket? There is a First Amendment zone around the courthouse where they are not allowed to show any allegiances to any side. And
That's
wouldn't
a U.S. flag.
hey, that could be seen as supporting the police.
Let's
Well,
not get carried away.
I
like.
Well, I
Whoa.
chicks with roosters. I believe the saying is I like chicks with Richards.
Get her on a Lego stream.
Your education training.
She'd have
and
that
experience
Lego
within
set
that.
built in
Yes.
5 minutes.
Yeah, she'll just
Now,
be sitting
initially,
there.
you had examined some various plastic and glass
Professional
items, and
puzzle
there was a
builder,
drinking
y'all.
straw in there as well,
Professional.
correct?
Yes.
And this
And,
would be the
specifically,
Colosseum, the big Colosseum.
As far as
set.
the item numbers that you looked at in this physical match analysis, could you provide the jury with a list of just the item numbers first to start with?
May
Your
I?
Honor.
Have your report with you, Ms. Willett?
I do.
Is there any objection to me using the report?
No objection at all.
So feel free to use it.
Thank you, Your Honor.
What?
So the questioned items labeled as coming from the road were item 7-5, item 7-6, 7-8, 7-9, 7-10, 7-11, 7-12, 7-13, 7-14, 7-15, 7-16, and 7-19. And the known item labeled coming from the passenger side tail light is item 3-1.
Now, Ms. Lear, within those specific item numbers of how things are labeled at your lab, if there are different pieces associated with the same item, how is it that you label those specifically in this physical match analysis here?
So some of the items had multiple pieces within that item. So I labeled them A, B, C, etc., depending on how many pieces there were.
Now, if you could, please explain to the jury just, again, the process that you followed in your examination of each of those items.
So first I looked at the questioned items, the items labeled as coming from the road. I looked at, I
don't disparage her patriotism. I just know that there's a First Amendment zone that prohibits any showing of allegiances to either side in the case. And wearing the American flag could be seen as a support to the state.
documented the overall package because they were all packaged in the same container, the same brown paper bag.
People have been forced to remove
individually
pink ties.
inside of it. There were a bunch of individual brown paper bags. Documented that, and I went one at a time through them, opening each paper bag, taking written notes, taking photos of the items inside.
Kind of looks like his younger brother.
Dewey, the one that we had a cop that looked just like him the other day.
Yeah.
Within each item, I looked to see if any of those pieces fit together. And then cleaned my bench in between the items.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
And Your Honor, so close, I have to show Mr. Yannetti all the plans.
Oh, she's got a face twitch.
All right, so why don't we just go ahead and mark them all?
I like her. I've liked all the
She raises her
professionals.
eyebrows.
I hate the cops.
Okay.
Mixed Lear, I'm showing you.
I like the nerdy
four
science
photographs.
people,
You recognize those?
It's
except when
our
they're
people.
talking about their CVs.
I do.
What do you recognize those to be?
These are photos that I took of item 3-1.
Again, what was the description associated with item 3-1?
Passenger side taillight.
And was that description further given sort of a specific vehicle or license plates associated with the vehicle?
You would have to
It does.
give them bail money.
Massachusetts 3GC684.
I haven't seen a whale tail in forever.
Right, those are that's why I wanted to.
That was the good old times when Lita was wrestling.
I was a big Lita fan.
Yeah, especially that segment with Edge.
Was it Christian or Edge?
It was Edge where the boob
It was Edge.
slipped out.
Yeah.
Have them in sections.
Ah,
Vince McMahon made him get naked in the middle of the ring under a blanket on a bed. It got a little weird.
I do.
And
It got a little weird.
Photos I took of item 7-5.
And again, from your report, what was the description?
oh no.
That's cute.
Yeah, thank you. You're fine. It's just
Piece of plastic red recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
You're on the Commonwealth seek to introduce and admit as the next exhibit A and B.
Okay.
171 A and B.
My apologies, Mark.
I read it and I couldn't see the difference. I saw Tom was running around outside and waiting for the cops to figure out what the ruling was because it was unintelligible. One side,
I think
one person thought it meant it was gone forever. Other people thought, well, now the police have more. So I don't know what it ended up being.
I thought I didn't read the first order, the whole first order. I read part of it. I didn't finish it. But it seemed like they reduced it down to just the court property, from what I understand.
Yeah, but at the same time, she didn't clearly. It was a BEV motion, so it was really weird.
The Court's Commission may publish some of those.
Yes.
Woohoo! Evidence.
Ms. Gilman, if I could first ask
I really
for
hope defense
photograph
points out
2122.
who collected what in a more succinct manner than they did last time.
Yeah, I hope
Mixed
they
Layer was up
point
on the
out
screen,
that the pieces were found together.
That is the bag associated with the passenger side taillight or the known item, correct?
Correct.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have a photograph 2125. And Ms. Gilman, if you could just enlarge a little bit towards the bottom where the ruler is. Now, Mixed Lear, what's up on the screen now as far as the sort of notations there? Who made those?
I did.
And how do you know that you were the one who made those?
That's my handwriting.
Well, M-Spire, have a great last night with your hubby. I will cover the case when they find his body.
And those are my initials.
So the AMV is for your name, correct?
Yes.
And with respect to each of the items that you photographed, you had photographs that were taken of sort of what was in the evidence bag in total, displayed on your table that you would clean with the solution and everything else, correct?
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could just zoom out a little bit to show the item. And again, what's up on the screen, that is item 3-1, the known item as far as the
Not
taillight from the
one
defendant's
salt
vehicle.
spray.
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 2126.
It is very clean.
And Ms. Lear, if you could just describe for the jury, what are we looking at in this photograph?
Those are those same items just turned over.
And lastly, for this set, Ms. Gilman, if I could have 2135. And again, same item as far as 3-1, the tail light taken from the defendant's vehicle.
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I
Tom
could
didn't
ask
know.
for photograph 1905. And Mr. Lear, as far as with each of these items, you take photographs when they're inside the bag and then once you take them out of the bag, correct?
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 1908. And what are we looking at in this photograph?
The contents of item 7-5.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Okay, 2 more photographs. Do you recognize those?
I do.
And what do you recognize those?
Photos of item 7-6.
That's one of the bag and then one when the item is taken out of the bag. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what was the description for item 7-6?
Piece of plastic, clear, recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
Colonel Como will seek to introduce the minutes, the next exhibit A and B.
172 A and B.
With the court's permission, may I publish those to the jury?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 1921, and then photograph 1924. And what's depicted up on the screen is that what you just have before you as the photograph that you took of item 7-.
And again, remind yourself that this is what Lally claimed made the scratches to John O'Keefe's arm. These small bubbles, which is to disperse the light from the diode so it looks white and red all over the place. These are the bubbles that he would infer, I think it was the word he used, could have made the indentations on his arms. These
Makes sense.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches long pieces of plastic with small dimples in it was what scratched John's arm. Lally should be on a list.
6 recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
Yes.
Thank you. May I approach the witness again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Congratulations. And A, that's great.
Do you recognize those?
I do.
What do you recognize that?
Photos I took of item 7-8.
And one of the bag and then one
I
of the
named
items
my daughter,
from the bag, is that
both
correct?
my daughters
Yes.
with an A, so at least
And,
I'll get one.
What is the description associated with item 7-?
Piece of plastic, red and clear, recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
Well, my oldest daughter actually have 3 A's.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could publish those to the jury.
Yes. Exhibit 173 A and B.
Yeah, if the defense ever gets to that, because they didn't in the first case.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 1931 and then 1934. And Ms. Gilman, if you could zoom in just a little on those items, please. And Ms. Lair, again, what are we looking at in this photograph of item 7-? What are we looking at again in this photograph? Excuse me.
Photos of item 7-8.
May I approach the witness again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Two other photographs. Those. Can you recognize those?
I would
do.
say you are biased.
Photos of item 7-9 and 7-19.
And as far as the first photograph, as far as the bag, and then second with the items taken out of the bag. Is that correct?
Yes,
So 7-9 and 7-19 were contained in the same bag.
they were. I then separated them into 2 separate packages.
And as far as 7-9 and 7-19, respectively, if you could tell the jury what was the description for each of those items.
Item 7-9
Well,
was pieces
maybe
of
she
glass
can be asked
recovered
if
from
she
34 Fairview
repackaged
Road.
them wrong.
Item 7-19 is trace item, black straw, recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
Colonel Como will seek to introduce the minutes to the next exhibit, A and B. May I publish, Your Honor?
Hold on.
Oh, forgive me.
74A and 174B. Now you can publish.
My apologies. Ms. Gilman, if I could have 1958, please. And then 1962. And again, Ms. Lear, what are we looking at in this photograph?
The contents of that bag, item 7-9 and item 7-19.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Two other photographs, do you recognize those?
I do.
And what do you recognize that?
Photos of item 7-10.
And again, one of the bag and one of the contents of the bag, is that correct?
Yes.
And if you could, please tell the jury what was the description for item 7-10.
Piece of plastic, red, recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
I want to introduce the minutes of the next exhibit, A and B.
Exhibit 175A and B.
May I publish that for the jury, Your Honor?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have 1952 and 1956. And again, Ms. Lear, what are we looking at in this photograph?
Photo of item 7-10.
Thank you. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Two other photographs, do you recognize those?
I do.
And what do you recognize those?
Photos of item 7-11.
And again, one photo of the bag and one photo of the items outside of the bag.
Yes.
And again, if you could, please tell the jury what the description is associated with item 7-11.
Piece of plastic, 6, red, clear, and black, recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
I'll call both to introduce and admit as the next exhibit A and B.
176A and B.
And may I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, 1979 and 1982. Again, makes
We
clear.
flashed up that
I'm sorry, Ms.
Proctor
Gilman, if
bag
you
real
could
quick.
zoom in just a little on the items themselves.
You want to go back?
No, I said we just switched off that Proctor bag really quick.
Oh,
This is the first bag that
Yeah.
Proctor
The
has
Proctor bag.
signed that wasn't, lab originated. And they clicked off of that real fast because mostly they're like, is this the bag? They're just like,
Yeah.
Here's a picture of the bag.
And makes clear what are we looking at in this photograph?
Photo of item 7-11.
These are photos, again, that you took in the lab during the course of your comparative or physical match analysis, correct?
Yes.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Two other photos, please look at those. Do you recognize those?
I do.
What do you recognize those?
Photos I took of item 7-12.
And again, photograph of the bag, photograph of the items outside of the bag.
Yes.
And if you could, please tell the jury what's the description of item 7-12.
Trace item, 14 glass and clear plastic, recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
I'll call about seek to introduce and minutes the next exhibit. A and B.
Exhibit 177A and 177B.
Your Honor, may I publish?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 2015 and 2018. And again, Ms. Gilman, if you could just zoom in a little on the items. Thank you.
Okay,
Ms. Lear,
no,
again,
hell
what-
no.
Can you describe what's depicted up on the screen?
A photo I took of item 7-12.
They found it, Mo.
They found him all
Your Honor, may I
together
approach?
Yes.
by magic.
No. It's because that's what happens.
What are the photographs? Do you recognize those?
Yeah, the pieces arrange
Stick
themselves
together.
to be easy.
I do.
What do you recognize those?
Photos I took of item 7-13.
And again, one of the bag and then one with the items removed from the bag.
Yes.
And if you
Nope.
could, please tell the jury what is the description for item 7-13.
Piece of plastic, red and black, recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
I'll about seek to introduce and minutes.
And all her sighing and all her. Can you speed it up, Mr. Yannetti?
Next exhibit A and B.
Exhibit 178A and 178B.
Your Honor, may I publish?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, 1997 and 2000.
That was
And again,
another
Ms. Gilman,
photo.
if you could, please zoom in on the items. Thank you. And Ms. Lear, directing your attention to the screen, can you describe for the jury what is depicted on the screen now?
A photo I took of item 7-13.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Two other photos. Do you recognize those?
I do.
What do you recognize that?
Photos I took of item 7-14.
And again, one of the bag and one of the items removed from the bag.
Yes.
And again, can you please tell the jury what the description is associated with item 7-14?
Pieces of glass recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
I'll seek to introduce the next exhibit, A and B.
Exhibit 179A and B.
May I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have 2009 and 2012. And again, Ms. Gilman, if you could zoom in on the item. And Ms. Lear, as far as what's depicted on the screen, again, if you could describe for the jury what that is.
A photo of item 7-14.
May I approach the witness again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Other photographs, if you could recognize those.
I do.
And what do you recognize that?
Photos of item 7-15.
And again, one of the bag and one of.
Just to break up the monotony a bit. anyone know John DePetro, the smartest court reporter in this case, who constantly gets all the hot scoops? People have wondered what Karen Reed is doing in court when constantly on her laptop. According to sources close to the defense, Reed sends certain social media influencers talking points in real time during the trial, pointing out elements she wants them to focus on. I have heard Reed also prepares talking points for a fundraiser who appears on TV as Karen Reed supporter. Yep, this is the low that a reporter who magically gets drawn every time, but Aiden doesn't win the lottery, or Machado never wins the lottery. But this guy and Doink gets elected.
Okay, but your multiple personalities don't count as a close source.
Well, I have my sources close to the state that told me that he got his talking point from Plevin. That's why it sounds like ChatGPT with a retard filter on.
That would explain a lot.
I think I could be banned on Twitter for saying retard. Well, it was a good run.
Wait, isn't Elon in charge? I think that's his favorite word.
I got banned for saying go sit on a cactus.
Oh,
Yes.
fair point.
And if you could, please tell the jury what is the description associated with item 7-50.
Piece of plastic, 3
John
clear and 5 red,
Petro.
recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
The guy who got fired and then claimed his girlfriend or his wife was the one who fudged the numbers.
180A and 180B.
May I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have 2072.
Yes.
Yes.
And 2077, please.
Another proctor.
Again, if you could zoom just a little as far as the items are concerned.
No
And Ms. Lear, what are we looking
flapjack
at in this
way.
photograph?
These are some of
item
the last
7-15.
pieces found.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Big 6-inch chunk.
I could have.
E.
Other photographs, do you recognize that?
I do.
What do you recognize that?
Photos I took of item 7-16.
And again, one of the bag and then one of the contents from the bag, is that correct?
Yes.
If you could, please tell the jury what was the description associated with item 7-16.
Piece of plastic, red and clear, recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
I'm about to seek to introduce the minutes of the next exhibit.
Jemima.
May I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have 2036
Everyone is a little feisty today.
and 2040. And Ms. Gilman, if you could zoom in just a little. Thank you very much. And Ms. Lear, if you could, please describe
This
to the jury
morning.
what we're looking at in this particular photograph.
This is
Did she?
item 7-16.
Yeah.
I missed that.
Stop making noises,
Tell me
stop
if you can
making
take that
faces, because it shows disrespect to the people in court. And this is the same lady who... Can you speed it up, Mr. Jackson?
No side
Oh, I did.
buzz again.
Now, with respect
I
to
did
each
catch
of these
that. I made
items
fun
that
before.
you examined in your physical match analysis, again, as far as the process is concerned, with the question items, what are you doing with reference to each of those question items first?
First, I document them, as you've seen. I'll see if any of those within the item have a physical match with each other. And then I'll package that away and look at all the questioned items before I compare inter-questioned items to see if there are any physical matches in between all the 7- items.
And as far as your notes are concerned, what is it that you're noting in reference to each of those items, as far as what characteristics of the item are you taking note of?
I'll note the size, the color, and the material.
And what, if any, measurements do you take of each of those respective items as well?
I'll take the length and width of each item.
Now, with respect, starting with item 3-1, the passenger side taillight from the defendant.
On Friday, we do chest, because if you want a thick mommy's begging for cream
Baker.
pies.
I would read this all the way through.
Till it drips all the way down there. Your pecs better be swole.
Vehicle. Sort of internally within that item 3-1, what did you conclude as far as your physical match analysis within that
I'll
item
allow it.
alone?
Within item 3-1,
Stole that from
I believe 4 of the
cease and
pieces
desist.
fit together.
And Your Honor, if the witness may refer to her notes
Yes.
as the, thank you.
Yes, four of the pieces fit together within item 3-1.
And which four of the
Four
pieces?
pieces fit together in item
Pieces
dash
A, B,
41.
D, and F.
And as far as the labeling of those pieces of an individual item, let's just start with item 3-1. A, B, D, and F. How are they labeled, and how do you sort of physically label those items?
We have a label maker in the lab, so I'll print out the case number, the item number, and then A, B, C, and my initials, and that goes physically on each of those items, or all of those pieces.
So if any of those items had a sticker on it with a letter or something associated with that, that would be something that you did during the course of your physical match analysis, correct?
Yes.
Now, if I could turn your attention to item 7-5, piece of plastic red recovered from 34 Fairview Road. What did you conclude as far as your physical match analysis just within that single item?
There was no physical match noted among those 3 pieces of apparent plastic.
And when you say no physical match found from the different pieces within that item, what does that mean?
The broken edges of each piece did not align.
So the broken edges of the individual pieces within item 7-5 did not fit together with the broken edges of pieces within item 7-5, correct?
Yes.
Now, with respect to item 7-6, a clear piece of plastic recovered from 34 Fairview Road, what did you conclude based on your physical match analysis just pertaining to that item 7-6?
So this item was 2 pieces of colorless apparent plastic, and there was no physical match noted between those two pieces.
Now, with reference to item 7-8, red and clear plastic recovered from 34 Fairview Road, what did you conclude in regard to your physical match analysis just with the pieces contained within item 7-8?
So there were 14 pieces. Pieces C and D fit together, and pieces E and F fit together.
And when you say fit together, is there a term of art used within your field called a mechanical fit?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury what you understand that term to mean as far as what is a mechanical fit?
So mechanical fit and a physical match are the same thing. The broken edges align together to show that they were once a single item.
Now, if I could turn your attention to item 7-9, pieces of glass recovered from 34 Fairview Road, what were you able to conclude from your physical match analysis of just the individual pieces contained within item 7-9?
So this item had 3 pieces, and no physical match was found between those.
Turning your attention to item 7-10, red pieces of plastic recovered from 34 Fairview Road. What were you able, that is a single item, is that correct?
Correct.
So no physical match because there's nothing to match, it's just one piece, correct?
Correct.
And turning your attention to item 7-11, identified as 6 red, clear, and black pieces of plastic recovered from 34 Fairview Road. What did you conclude in regard to your physical match analysis just within those pieces contained within 7-11?
So that item had 6 pieces, and there was no physical match noted among those 6.
Now, turning your attention to item 7-12, which was identified as 14 pieces of glass and clear plastic recovered from 34 Fairview Road. Again, what did you conclude from your physical match analysis just from the various pieces contained within item 7-12?
So there were 14 pieces overall. Pieces B, C, D, F, and K fit together mechanically as one unit. And then pieces E and I fit together mechanically as one unit. And pieces M and N fit together mechanically as one unit.
Now, through your examination of these pieces in particular and other pieces as well, did you note any debris contained on the pieces that you located?
Yes.
And can you say anything as far as what that debris was, or was there any analysis done of that debris specifically?
I just note that there was debris present, and I packaged it into a tin that's retained with the original packaging.
Now, turning your attention to item 7-13, that was a piece of plastic red and black recovered from 34 Fairview Road. Is that correct?
Yes.
And again, just with respect to your physical match analysis of the various pieces of 7-13, what did you conclude?
So that item had 3 pieces, and there was no physical match noted among those 3.
Again, with reference to item 7-14, piece of glass recovered from 34 Fairview Road, that was again a single item, correct?
A single piece, yes.
So I'll turn your attention to item 7-15, 3 clear and 5 red pieces of plastic recovered from 34 Fairview Road. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what were you able to conclude from your physical match analysis, again, just from the various pieces contained within item 7-15?
So there were 8 pieces in this one. Pieces F and H fit together mechanically.
Turning your attention to, lastly for this purpose, item 7-16, a piece of plastic, red and clear, recovered from 34 Fairview Road. What were you able to conclude from your physical match analysis just contained within the pieces of that single item 7-16?
So that item had 7 pieces. Pieces A, C, and D fit together mechanically.
Now, Ms. Valier, once you had examined each of those pieces individually, what did you do next in your analysis?
Next, I compared all of the inter-questioned, these items 7-5 to 7-16. I compared them to see if there was a mechanical fit amongst those, between those items.
Mr. Lally, is this a good place for our break?
It's perfect. Yes, Your Honor.
All right, jury's gonna take.
Well,
Jury, go take your Monster Energy drinks and your espresso.
at least she was feeling the same. Can we get over this yet? Like we are. That was.
I've had two monsters already this morning, and
I'm dragging. This judge is dragging behind.
It's just, I don't know if it's procedure that they have to put evidence in this way, but oh my effing God, this is boring. This should be only allowed on half days.
It really should.
maybe today is a half day. Maybe it is. Yeah.
It's yeah. Let's. Well, I'm not allowed to play the Gen anymore.
Also, like the one time we're going to put witnesses together that actually match, it has to be all of the boring people. Like this trial has been like, paramedic, then Jen McCabe, then guy who used to go to high school with some chick's boyfriend, then, a cop, then a radiologist. I mean, so the one time they decide to get it all together is with the boring people. Awesome.
I'm Jimmy. How y'all doing?
Yeah. When did you first meet Maureen?
This is in the summer of 14.
And where did you meet her?
I love Jimmy. Jimmy's amazing.
We need a Jimmy in this case.
That's the energy we all need in life, really.
We need a likable person, just one.
Can't they agree on certain evidence and save us from falling asleep from half of the trial? They did this morning, that the troopers seen in the morgue was this and that. But this evidence will be something that the jury can review later, and they will have to have this lady say, well, all of it actually fit together. So they have to do it this way, sadly. So
Which trial is Jimmy from? I forget.
he is from the Laurie Shaver fire pit case. He was the one who sold her a car.
All right, Mr. Leslie, I'll hear you.
Oh.
You are unmuted.
Ooh. Unless he's going to spit facts.
Come on. I have been ordered by my mods that I'm not allowed to do it anymore.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yesterday, Your Honor discussed with the parties, and parties were heard with regard to the issues we have raised with regard to the timing of the May 8th report from Mr. Burgess that the defense received on May 11th. And what I wanted to do, Your Honor, is briefly provide the information Your Honor asked for yesterday, which was how much time we might need under various circumstances. And so I wanted to take a few moments to put that in context. It will only take me a brief amount of time to do so. So, Your Honor, there is a timing issue, but there's most importantly a substantive issue. I will not, of course, go into the detail of yesterday, but the timing really is informed by the substantive issue. And so with regard to the matter, we went back and we looked at more deeply the effect of this timing and this movement of the what has been referred to as clock drift in Mr. Burgess's report that we got on May 11th. I spoke of the significance yesterday, and here's what I would like to add as is relevant to the time we're going to need. I again urge the court to reject it substantively, because what we did was we went and we looked at matters such as the cross-examination of a key witness in this case, Jennifer McCabe. She testified with regard to observing a vehicle at 12:45 a.m. And that's a significant point. I know I don't need to elucidate for Your Honor. It goes, all of this is going in significant part, if not total part, to what has been is alleged a collision here, which we vigorously contest. It just never, no collision ever occurred. But the timing of it, the timing of what's alleged by the Commonwealth is very important. The seconds are important. Literally 1 second can turn not only the Commonwealth's theory completely around in circles and debunk it, but also the jury's analysis of it. And this is the point I wanted to elucidate today, is that the jurors have been provided information, and the defense has aimed its defense on this claim based upon, in large part, timing. So now what we have is we have on May 11th, Mr. Burgess changing the timing. So what does it affect? Not only witnesses like Jennifer McCabe, who we crossed, we strategized with regard to, but also my decision to not even cross Trooper Garino, because Trooper Garino had testimony with regard to when Ms. Reed connected with the Wi-Fi at One Meadows, and there's a certain time associated with that. We have Mr. Whiffen, who went through the Commonwealth.
We should get a
went
motion
through
to dismiss here, right?
And we believe they went through a timeline for the theory that they had. And I cross-examined Mr. Whiffen extensively with regard to that timeline. There were several defense strategies and effectuations of strategies based upon that timing. So with regard to the substance, Your Honor, and there's more, but I think that's a fair representation. It innervates our entire defense. The question now of Your Honor of how much time it will take the defense to react to Mr. Burgess, I wanted to say it's not only a reaction, but it's a substantive defense analysis, and 3/4 of the effectuation of that has already occurred through our presentation in terms of cross-examination. So we would have to, and we're still evaluating that, revisit all of that. And secondly, we would have to put that into the calculation of all of our witnesses that we've already prepared that are based upon that timeline. So it is a very significant point. And to the extent that the Commonwealth tries to argue, well, you know, we never really committed that much to a certain time period. I again urge the court to look at the report of Dr. Judson Welcher, where he has 1162-2 with a specific range, 1238 to 43. And even in their range, it's a very small time, which further supports how each second matters in this regard. Now to the answer to the question Your Honor asked yesterday. Again, I urge that it just be rejected and we keep this trial moving in its current pace. To the extent that that does not occur, and again, we urge that it be rejected, the report, because it's a Rule 14 violation, there is no remedy for the defense. However, to the extent, and given Your Honor nonetheless asked me for an answer in time, we would need 4 days to be able to address it. We will not ever be able to recover strategically or substantively from it, given all that's been presented to the jury. And it will be very difficult to figure out how we're going to go present a defense after we've already presented to the jury our defense and our cross-examination. It's not really structurally possible to simply take 4 days and address Mr. Burgess, because we can't go back to all the witnesses I just mentioned and others and start crossing them and eliciting testimony with this new time period in mind. But I wanted to answer the question, Your Honor, respectfully, it would be 4 days for us to even go from where we are now and then try to alter not only witnesses such as Arca, but DeSogra and Gaffney and other types of witnesses that we have in that regard. So Your Honor, respectfully, that is my response.
All right, does the Commonwealth want to be heard?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, of course, Hank wants to be
This
heard.
is the defense's fault.
Yeah, they did it first.
Respectfully, Your Honor, the defense is very confused. They attempt to
Shocking.
confuse the issue. They attempt to confuse Your Honor about what the impact would be. This
Oh,
has
so they're
never
lying?
been a change. The government is not changing their timeline. The Commonwealth is not changing any information. The Commonwealth is not offering anything that affects in any way the testimony of witnesses. It's notable in the argument there is no relationship to the facts or the actual report that was provided.
He said he didn't want to go into the report.
Yeah, Bev said keep it short, you jackass.
Yeah, and again, he gave you the timelines yesterday.
The Commonwealth has always provided the data, which they have, and they.
No, you haven't. You have turned over evidence late all the time. You have turned over video evidence that should have been provided in the first trial during the second trial. You
turned
are a
over
slimy
video
weasel.
evidence in mirrored.
How long do
And
you
then
think it'll
told
be
us
till he
that there was
says?
nothing wrong with that, that it was essentially the same photo or the same video.
How long do
You
you think
had a
it'll be till he
mirror
says the
on
word ambushed?
You had a mirror image that you claimed were 2 stickers.
Hadn't a chance to
Yeah.
analyze. And the interpretation of the data has been different between the parties. We have been clear from the beginning at the time in which the infotainment system shows that there was a collision. We've been clear. And the data has been clear. That has never changed. That data in the telestream system is based on a clock in the Lexus, which both sides know full well is different than a clock in an iPhone. You can see all the productions of Dr. Welcher's PowerPoint presentation where it shows that time, 12/31/43, has never changed. Also, it has been clear that both sides appreciate that there is a variance between the clock in the Lexus, which leads to that.
Nope, that's not clear because
No.
you said 12:31 is when he's hit, and 12:32 is when his phone is used the last time. So if all is clear, you should have preferenced that by saying the phone was on a different time, but because of this
Yeah.
time shift, you can see the 2 timelines here, it aligns. You had a guy testify that John O'Keefe was operating his phone almost a minute after he died. So I
Not-
think you're confused. And you
Not
will
to mention-
want this to confuse the jury even more.
They've had this evidence. They've had this evidence for how many years? And you're telling me
3.
they're still finding issues with
3
their
plus.
timeline. Like every day they found the Shroud of Turin, and the next day it's the, Spear of Longinus, and then, oh my God, it's the Noah's Ark. Are you kidding me?
Well, I can say with my spear, I hope I find someone with a short gyness.
System information and a clock and an iPhone. In fact, the defense was so aware of it, they hired an expert, Mr. DeSorga, who gave his opinions about that variance. We have never suggested there was not a variance in this case. In fact, we have highlighted the variance.
No, you haven't.
When
You
their
never
expert,
talked
Mr.
about it, you
DeSorga,
idiot.
provided a report, we believe that his analysis was wrong. And so we looked at the variance and the data that was available from the Telestream system and John O'Keefe's Waze data that was on his phone that was always available to all of the experts in both sides. And when Mr. Burgess looked at the variance at the time of a 3-point turn about 7 minutes before the collision, he simply matched the Waze information on Mr. O'Keefe's phone to that of the information from the Telestream and saw that it was a 21 to 29 second variance. all that data was available to the defense because their expert made an improper conclusion is not our fault. This does not change the testimony of anybody. They point to Jen McCabe's text message where she said she thought she saw a motor vehicle out front that evening at 12:45.
No, she testified she
That is
saw
not
it, not
consistent with the
thought.
Commonwealth's timeline,
Yeah.
but that doesn't change. That
You can't
favors
testify
the
to
defense.
thoughts.
It does not change anything to do with ARCA. ARCA has not, as far as I've seen in any reports, ever talked about the variance, just Mr. DeSorda. And so because this is inconvenient for the defense, and because
It's not
it
inconvenient.
further
You're lying, you
focuses the
fucking
variance
idiot.
that we already discussed and provided, isn't a reason to exclude it. It's not late discovery. It's not a Rule 14 violation. It is further analysis of information that was already provided, opinions that were already provided, and it is in response to their experts' mistake about that variance. There's nothing new here. Nothing has changed.
Okay. Go right ahead, Mr. Leslie.
Thank you, Your Honor.
The only question I had for you yesterday, for you to respond to today, was the time, so I gave you more leeway.
And
So
you're giving me more leeway, and I appreciate it.
go right ahead.
So 2 items, Your Honor. As I alluded to yesterday, and it's been a point that Mr. Brennan just made. We believe strongly, Your Honor, that at a minimum, there needs to be a voir dire of Mr. Burgess. And we believe strongly there needs to be a voir dire because we have a serious concern that the sequestration order has been violated. He has changed a very key aspect of this matter after the testimony of Mr. Whiffen, after Mr. Whiffen presenting a timeline. In his report, Mr. Burgess, his new purported report of May 8th, he references to align it with Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone. That is the essence of Mr. Whiffen's report, is anchoring in his timeline. He did a whole timeline on Mr. O'Keefe's report. And conveniently, the proposed alteration by Mr. Burgess in his report of this clock drift now makes it very, very close to fitting within Mr. Whiffen's timeline and the theory of the prosecution. At a minimum, we need a voir dire to ask Mr. Burgess, why did he do what he did? Another reason for the voir dire. Mr. Brennan yesterday said, we were surprised to get the report. That further makes great concern as to why Mr.
And sorry, it's so loud, but I have to do it. He hasn't got a microphone. Who are the new unfortunate souls over there? The one in the back is a friend of Jen McCabe's, I think. I don't know who the rest are. I don't do faces.
Mr. Burgess did what he did. Lastly, Your Honor, with regard to Mr. Brennan's point, he made it yesterday and I corrected it. He said it again today, that supposedly our witness, Mr. DeSogra, made an error and that we're trying to correct an error of Mr. DeSogra. That is incorrect, Your Honor. Again, Mr. DeSogra was responding to Mr. Burgess's report. Mr. DeSogra's report is entirely saying, okay, Mr. Burgess says this, and therefore the defense says this. Now Mr. Burgess is changing what he is saying. So it is completely incorrect to say that Mr. DeSogra is trying to correct an error. That would require, again, Mr. DeSogra to change what he has done. Final point is this. There was also an issue, Your Honor, and this is extremely important with regard to burden shifting. There's not only the question of should this be allowed at all, there's not only the question of how much time the defense will need, but there's a third and important issue, and that's burden shifting. What Mr. Brennan proposed yesterday was a very irregular process where essentially the Commonwealth gets 3 bites at the apple for a problem that they caused. The problem we're talking about is Mr. Burgess changing a significant part of a timeline. Yes, there was a variance that he had, but he picked a range of the variance. He's now changing the variance. So what the Commonwealth is proposing is that our witnesses go forward, the aperture gets to wait, they come on, and then the aperture gets to come on yet again.
Burgess is an expert from the company Aperture, who the defense has, the state has hired this time to combat ARCA because they didn't have anyone else but poor Trooper Paul the last time. So this time they have gone out and gotten their own biomechanical engineer. It's a new company, newer company, not as well known, who I can't remember how long they have been going, but they don't have NASA.
Yeah, NASA.
Yeah, we call it NASA. But they don't have contracts with them. The NHL, they weren't hired to figure out what went wrong with the Challenger shoot. They are two people who I don't think they have been going for that long. I will look it up.
I did not understand the Commonwealth asking me that. Are you asking me to do that, Mr. Brennan?
I appreciate the clarification.
I'm not sure what he's saying, so.
It sounds like DeBrosia or whatever.
His name is DeSoder, yes.
DeSoder, you're suggesting that the Commonwealth suggested yesterday that he testifies first and then the Aperture witnesses?
What I understood was going to happen is Mr. Brennan said yesterday that Dr. Welcher cannot come in until after.
No, I didn't understand that. I understood Dr. Welcher, Shannon Burgess, and then Dr. Welcher for everything that you folks received prior, January 31st, whatever the date was. And then potentially for all the new ARCA information that came in May 7th, that portion, Dr. Welcher returning on rebuttal for. Not that they were holding back Dr. Welcher completely. Is that correct, Mr. Brennan?
That's the conversation I had. That conversation I wasn't part of.
Yeah, I think you misunderstood that, Mr. Alessi.
So I did, just so I'm clear, what is it that the
Mr. Brennan, all right, this is separate, and I'd really like to give everybody a break here. What is it the Commonwealth is asking to do regarding that?
Regarding Mr. Burgess or Mr. Welcher?
Which, Dr. Welcher?
Dr. Welcher should come in and testify to his PowerPoint, all of his opinions, which address all of the prior representations and opinions of ARCA, although we still don't have any raw information, but we're ready to move forward.
Oh, for God's
Regarding
sake.
any new opinions, which there is over a dozen new opinions that includes testing, video, experiments, Dr. Welcher should have enough time to review, conduct his own testing, turn it over, and then in rebuttal.
No, because it's rebuttal to his report.
Yeah, it's a rebuttal to his report. You don't get a double rebuttal.
That's what he's trying to do.
And again,
Rebuttal.
why could he already make a report that you claimed you didn't know? Bev, you better at least give them a effing idea.
Address limited to the new issues raised by ARCA.
That's how I understood it, Mr. Alessi.
And that's how I did also, but the question is now with the Burgess changing of the clock drift, how many times is
They launched in 2019.
the Commonwealth proposing that Dr. Welcher gets to come in and talk about that? Is he just going to come in and talk about it?
So you talk with Mr. Brennan about that. All right, so I'm all set for this.
There are no changes. There is no changes in the timeline. He keeps trying to portray
Why are
this
you
as
talking
changed.
still?
Nothing has changed. It's the exact same. He's always said there's a variance. He's been looking into the variance for a long time, and now he has found a method to show the exact variance. It's not changing. There's nothing in the reports that changes as far as the timeline. That's just an attempt to cause fear. There's nothing that has changed. We can look at the report. It's all the same, always has been. Other than now he's identified the mistake.
That's what
of their
you said
expert,
yesterday.
and that led him
There's
to
a
be able
change
to
to the
identify
timeline.
the variance, which is helpful and new. And the suggestion that there's been some.
If it's helpful and new, then something has changed, you idiot. Then it's not the same, because then you didn't need a new report if it's the same. I can't
Yes,
with this
and
guy.
why did he change his report or have an addendum to it? He just happened to have an epiphany all of a sudden, just his brain
Yeah,
light
but where
bulbed.
he meant exactly the same as he did in the report they replied to. Oh, fuck, this guy's an idiot.
Of an order, no good faith basis whatsoever. None.
Does the Commonwealth oppose a voir dire just on that one issue?
Yes, because it's suggesting that there's a good faith basis for it. Nothing has. Ian Whiffin's report was available to the defense and our experts months and months and months ago. The issue of variance has been an ongoing issue for months. There's nothing that triggers a change in the testimony.
There is a new report where he
to adopt or adapt to it. Our timeline has been the same since when we turned it over at the beginning.
Yesterday.
They cannot point to one thing that has changed between Dr. Belcher, Ian Whiffen, Jessica Hyde, or Shannon Burgess. They're just saying things without a good faith basis. In the reports, show us where something has changed.
Yeah, please.
Your Honor, to inform you, Your Honor, we would like to print the page in the clock adjustment because what Mr. Brennan says is
Yes,
correct.
and I'm happy to any information. All right.
Change.
20 minutes.
20 minutes again.
Thank you.
All right, so the court.
Hank, stop talking. Nothing's changed. Did you hear that at the end? Hank, shut up.
Did they say 20? Did she say 20 minutes?
Yes, I believe so.
Then we're at lunchtime.
Yeah, but I'm wondering if she's taking 20 minutes to think about her motion.
And Burgess. They
just wanted to hear if I could hear him say something.
Nine.
All right.
Change.
20 minutes.
Nine.
I can't hear what he's saying.
He says nothing has changed, not anything, I think.
Yeah. I think the guy who says change is Alessi when he's sitting down, because he doesn't really hit the microphone, and then I think Brennan, because he's pissed off, when he goes to turn off his microphone. Yeah, if nothing has changed, there's no reason to use the report. There's no use. There's no need to even do a new report.
Yeah, unless you want to get more money. Like I
It's
wrote
only
another
11.
report.
Oh, sorry. I was just wishing. I'm making tortilla wraps tonight. If I have some time for it for once. I need food, wonderful food. I need food, wonderful food. Today is the last day of the school year before exams for Danish students, where they dress up, get drunk, and throw caramels at the younger kids in school. Well, give the younger kids caramels. That's our tradition.
What is up with your people throwing things at people in celebration? I love it because it's kind of like assault, but kind of you get away with it. But that being said, where'd that come from?
Well, we in my school, they were all 10th grade always had the same classrooms. There were two A and B in most years. And they were up on the second floor, third floor for you, because we count the entry not as the first floor. And they would be up there, and then we'd chuck caramels out. And the first couple of years, it was fine, and they did the underhand throw. And when we got a little bit older, people found out you can store your bag of caramels in the freezer overnight. And then you can really whip it good.
Oh, no.
And sadly, I heard in the radio today that multiple schools have now done non-alcoholic last days in school. That's why? What?
Yeah, just for science. I got these non-alcoholic booze things that are supposed to have like botanicals in there to make you feel better. They were on clearance for $5. I wonder why. Yeah, they tasted gross and I didn't feel any different.
We never had a Queen Thomas. We never had a King Thomas. Well, it's fun because then you will also go around. The last day in school. Let me educate you kids about how you do last day in school. You do the big and the hat and the thing and the weird. You dress up as something. Then you go at 6 in the morning. you'll go meet with your buddies and you'll slam some gammeldansk. That's for you, it will probably taste like my lord. You slam some of them, have some beers, and then at 7, 8 o'clock, you'll go to the school where you'll have breakfast, where the teachers will then provide you with alcohol because it's the last day in school. And then you'll keep drinking. And then at around 10-ish, where you have we have like 2 big breaks in the school day. Before that, you'll run around in the classrooms and just chuck caramels into the room so the kids will fight over them in the middle of the classroom. And then at the big break at 10 or at 9:30, we would stand up in the windows and then throw it out in the schoolyard so everyone could grab some caramels and go. And after that, you would go play either soccer or I think you call it rounders against the teachers. And it will at some point become contact rounders or contact football because you have some scores that you need settling after 11 years in school. So that's a good school day. And then you'll steal a moped and you'll go to an after party and then you'll sneak into a nightclub and all good fun stuff for what was I when I left school? 15, 16 years old.
Yeah,
Well,
if teachers were
because you're
handing out
communist.
booze.
No, this is 10th grade. When you are, well, I went with the grade above me, but normally you are like 16, 17 when you leave school. You have the people school and then you have vocation school or prep for uni school or business school. So it's after 10 years in the people school. You'll have that, and you'll be like 15 years old. So it's a perfectly fine time to get hammered before 8 o'clock in the morning. What's the drinking age against in Denmark? Well, technically, you can't buy hard liquor till you're 18. 16, you can buy wine. You can buy. I think you could buy Fireball because that's only like 14% or something. You can give that to pregnant women. Not medical advice. And beer, of course, because beer is not drinking. So that's
Fair point.
That's
But it's not good.
9th grade is when you do that, and normally you start in school in kindergarten when you're 6 years old. So 9th grade you'll be 16.
Now I want caramels, Baker. Thank you.
If drinking starts at 6 a.m., pretty sure no one would be staying at school to chuck candy. Of course you would. It's not like you're only doing it 4 hours later and you're continuously drinking. I think my last school day probably ended around 5 in the morning. Yeah, probably did it like at 24 hours.
Mo would be asleep in first period, sleeping it off. They'd be like, have another beer, Mo. And I'd be like, gonna need a wheelbarrow to get to school.
No, we'll stay there because we will have that contact rounders of football later with all the teachers we don't like. Hank is acting more and more childish as the state case falls apart. Yeah, and I really hope that Bev will see the reasoning. And I hope that they have that piece of paper they claim where they change the timeline, because then he will have egg on his face and she should come back. I am infuriated.
Yes.
You haven't missed anything today. They found John O'Keefe's DNA on his clothes. See, you just move here, and as long as you can pay for yourself for the first 3 years, you're welcome.
Ooh.
We also have 3 more years. Well, I did 4 more years for my education, but we have what's called the People's School. That's what everyone must have. The mandatory, I believe, is 9 years of school in Denmark. But because you have kindergarten, for most people, you'll do 10 years. And back when I went to school, you could do a 10th grade as well, but that got removed. And then you would either go to a vocation school like I did, the culinary college, or you can go to like business if you want to be an office worker or work in retail, or you can go for the gymnasium, that's the one where you prepare to go to uni and study. So we do 3 years after that again. You, as long as it's consensual, Brandon, you can pack whatever.
Yes, Brandon, I'll allow it.
I wasn't 21 until senior year of college. I had my baker degree when I was 20. Yeah, they found his own DNA on his own clothes. That's they didn't know where up. There was everywhere from 2 to 5 people mixed in with his DNA, and they never tested anything that could tell them who, if any, it was. People in Wales go to school from the age of 3 years old up until they're 16 years old. Well, you don't have to go to. Well, we have the kindergarten is called kindergarten class because it's kind of like a bridge between kindergarten and school. So you don't have to do that. You can start in first grade if you want. You can be home till then. You can be homeschooled, but I have never heard about anyone in Denmark being homeschooled. We don't love our kids that much. I had my business degree at 22. Yeah, that's an art degree. Funny thing, Valhalla also has an art degree. He has a /female studies /art. I had my Abitur at 18, birthday was a month later. Abitur would be high school equivalent, I think. Yeah, Abitur, but German schools you split around 7th grade if you want to go into a craft or if you want to go into continuous school education, right? So you go to either to do more uni or go out and get a craft early. I can't remember how the German system is. Yeah, they just changed the laws last year, 2 years ago. I think 9th grade is mandatory now. When my dad was young, it was 5th grade, and they only went, I think, every other day, but they had school on Saturdays as well.
Every other day I could live with. Saturday school, that's straight.
Well, if you have the Friday off, then Saturday is just another day. Why
Well,
didn't
is
they
that
test for anyone else, not even Karen Reed, even though they wouldn't be strange for it to have been on his clothes? How can they not test against other people? Because they didn't get any DNA test, because they didn't ask for any DNA test. It's really easy not to find evidence if you don't ask for evidence.
Not to mention, when they can't quantify, they might not have enough DNA. You need a certain amount of points on the DNA that you can test, and that combination, they might not be able to find that many points.
If Hank talked like this to Judge Borowski, he would be 6 feet under. I still think it's a waste that they put Judge Borowski in, was it traffic court? Because he apparently made someone mad. I love that guy.
He's Judge Borowski. He's there to make idiots mad.
Yeah, and again, it's the way he conducted that trial, and he was just, you just made your paralegal a witness. Good job. I like that guy. We need more judges like him. Thank you.
He's a gem. Though I will say Judge Kranick didn't allow a lot of crap either with the Sarah Boone case.
No. And he had, that's the thing I wish Bev had. Every time he had a ruling, Florida v. Birkenstock, Florida v. Alligator Skins, Florida v. Let's go Brandon, lesser known case, let's just say it's Columbia related, if you know what I mean. Brandon might at some point have owned more submarines than the Third Reich. After Abitur, you can go to school. The other schools can't. Yeah. Oh, so yeah, the Abitur is the one you take to go to uni. Okay, yeah. I just because my cousin lived in, well, first she lived in Bremen, and then she lived in Flensburg, Regensburg, and her kids went to German school. So I just remember that Abitur. Oh no, dinner party. Oh. Well, again, it's really easy to not find any evidence against anyone in the house if you don't look for evidence that could point to someone else. So it's really good for the Bowden defense to show they never did an investigation that made sense, because everyone would say, why didn't you test against all the other people we're talking about's DNA if they were with him that night? And no reason.
That's hilarious, Brandon. That's hilarious.
These specialists are given orders, directions as far as what type of testing to do. When not asked to test, no testing is done. Yeah, that's they don't get paid for. You don't get paid at your job for not doing something you want to do. You only get paid to do what the boss man asks you to. I would be on my couch watching football right now if Jamie hadn't ordered me to stream. She claims that my first check is still in the mail and she won't write a new one till the first one arrives. So it's only been 3 years. It's called on a lunch. No, they had a 20-minute break after we had a hearing.
Yeah, I do wonder if they're waiting to see what Bev says before they ask for a mistrial.
I think they should have done it already. If she makes a ruling now that takes care of it, then they can come and say, oh, by the way, we want a mistrial.
Yeah, or they might be thinking we're not doing this again.
Yeah,
because the state is hell-bent for leather to come after Karen.
But again, if they have so much against the state's case, at what point can she keep her dignity by letting, sorry, stupid question. Why is someone mailing checks? Jamie said that's how she's going to pay me. She's going to mail me a sweet little Czechish girl. She put her in a coffin, and then she said she shipped her. She hasn't arrived in 3 years. So
she's going to age like fine wine.
She's going to be a little bit smelly when she arrives.
But not as bad as Doink, so we're good.
Yeah, still not as bad as Doink. And Pishka isn't Czech. That's Serbsky or Polish, I think. That's why he should have argued yesterday what he said today and added mistrial with prejudice at the end. Yes, I agree. But I've seen the Twitter lawyers, and they say, well, do they want to do the trial if they don't get the prejudice? At what point can the Commonwealth keep off the charade as well? We know that today Hank or someone else has cried to Bev about the juror making faces because they are reading Sue and Machado's follow-along court rundowns because they say this one is smiling. Oh, they laughed at them with the solo cups. So today she gave an instruction to not prejudice anyone. But again, they are following this closely. And at this point, you have to be a paid member of the MSP. You have to be an idiot influencer who thinks that you will get clout, or you have to hate Turtle Boy to believe Karen Reed is guilty. There's no, and sadly, one of our regular viewers claims she's innocent, but I still have seen no evidence proving she's guilty. Oh, sorry, guilty, not innocent. I haven't seen any evidence, and they can never provide it. She was drunk. Yeah. He wasn't hit by a car. Well, she was drinking. He wasn't hit by a car. Well, she was there. He wasn't hit by a car.
Yeah.
Jen said she said it. Doesn't mean there's a reason why you never ever rely on eyewitnesses in a case. because they are highly
Inaccurate.
inaccurate. Just ask 5 of us who has been watching this today what color of clothes Valhalla had on. He's been on screen for over an hour. What color was his shirt?
White t-shirt, graphic writing.
I can I
I
can't go
think.
back and see it. I don't know.
I'm probably wrong.
But that was one of the I have a case we just started this week, and we only had one witness, and we were instructed by the judge, if we don't see video that can back this up and we don't get the victim to do, then we'll most likely not be able to do it, because you can't base it on an eyewitness. Even if the most people do is grant a mistrial without prejudice, you don't want to walk the woman to a jail cell. I agree 100%. And that's why I said it when he said, and one more thing, I said, mistrial. I think they should have said, the only thing that can remedy this is a mistrial, but we will have to settle with a voir dire.
He did settle, or he did subtly say it by, this is irreparable. The damage.
Yeah, but he
cannot
needs
be
to
undone.
say the words, because
Well, yeah.
it's like everything else. You need to say it. Great t-shirt. I don't know. Well, I can see my own live stream, can't I? Yeah, I can. I can click back in it. Yeah, he has a gray shirt on today. The more you know. But when I ask you all tomorrow, you don't know. That's why you don't rely on eyewitnesses.
Nope.
Valhalla is sleeping on the floor.
Yeah,
I love that he. I had 2 monsters. Who isn't here? Well, I was out taking care of the goats. Yeah, I heard the goat stream.
To be fair, Mo as Bev would be okay with a nappy poo too, just until we got done with the sciencey people. And I usually love science, but I've seen this film before.
Yeah, but I think it's a way that they have to do it in Massachusetts. They have a procedure.
Yeah, no, I know.
She took a 20-minute break. They should be back in now, 5 minutes ago.
At least Bev's consistent. I'm Bev from the Cape, so Cape Cod. Lobsters.
Yeah, that's wrong. There should be evidence that back up his, maybe not firsthand, but at least enough circumstantial evidence to back him up. No one really know where Higgins was at what point.
No, we've not heard about his Jeep. We saw him shuffle one car, get into another, get a duffel bag from another one. But from what we saw, unless I missed it, he only actually moved one car.
Yeah, and he everything is changed since the first trial anyway, so you can't go back and use that as any guiding light for this one, because they're just effing everything up.
Ms. Valhalla just got home. I'm sorry.
Woo!
Oh, that's why it took 13 seconds to get back here.
She got groceries. I had to unload cars and stuff. Unload was the key word there.
Now she's kind of come in and just slap you, and
she doesn't watch this. Come on now.
Maybe she watches Mo show. Mo have a great show. It's not like us.
I try once in a while to have a show that's good.
We're having the third one today because I'm still tired.
Yeah, holy
I
goodness.
think they are
this is-
disillusioned that things can get much worse if they anger her by asking for reasonable remedies. Time to throw down. I'm 100 in agreement with you, Brendan. Kick the door open and just say, at this point, Bev, you better effing get us a fair trial, because the only thing that can make this fair is sanctions against the Commonwealth and dismissal of the trial. She was asking yesterday how many days off they needed if they wanted to fix it, and 4 days. Yeah, let's take 4 days off next. Let's take 4 days off in the first week of June.
I don't think she's going to let them have those 4 days off. I think they're just going to push that testimony out 4 days.
Yeah, because they
Let's
have to
take
go
4
back and
days
they
off
have to
in the first week of
recross
June.
everyone.
That'd be good. I'd like that. That'd be good. Oh, and in all fairness, I was wearing a green shirt, an olive green shirt this morning before I jumped on. But when I went out in the barn, I got poop on it. So I had to change shirts. Damn ducks.
Daggone.
They poop on everything. I'm about over the ducks. Ducks are probably not going to be here long.
You say that you're going to have a duck herd. You're going to have duck cam coming soon.
Well, we've had a lot of ducks at one point. We've had probably close to 100 ducks at one point, but they're not nearly that many anymore.
Unless it wants a long Memorial Day. When's Memorial Day?
Soon.
Actually, today in Denmark is a great prayer day. When we went from having all the Catholic prayer days, just made one big one, and then 2 years ago the government took that away as a special day because we had to pay for a certain kerfuffle in Ukraine, because we really needed those 3 billion. Last year's surplus on the budget was 133 billion. So those 3 billion, yes, don't take a day off, because they were the ones that just tipped us over. Imagine if we only had a surplus of 132 billion.
That
How
would be
could
terrible.
the country
It
run?
would be terrible.
That would be terrible. Memorial Day is on Monday, the 26th, and that is a national holiday. Therefore, there will be no court, I assume.
Oh, you are celebrating that our king has his birthday that day. That's nice of you.
Yes.
And for the record, Memorial Day is not a celebratory day. It is a day of remembrance. It is a day of...
You can remember the new Danish king. I'm fine with whatever you call it, but it's his birthday and it's in his honor. Thank you, America.
You're welcome. We tried.
He's a veteran too. He's actually a frogman, the Danish seal. So and he didn't do the normal royal where he just showed up one Monday and just got, oh, congratulations, you're an admiral. He did do the entire.
So he's not like the
education.
English royalty, you mean?
He's not like his little brother who got all the. No, he actually. I played for them when they had the. I think it was like the 50-year jubilee for the Frogman Corps, and he was doing all the same crap as everyone else, jumping out of helicopters and stuff like that. He's a man's man, just like Steven Regal. He's a man's man.
Oh, got it.
Fun.
Yeah, Memorial Day is typically the start of summer for us. It's like the official.
Yes.
Most pools will open on Memorial Day weekend.
In
Goes
remembrance
from Memorial Day to Labor Day.
of it being hot.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also, a lot of people died to protect our safety, and we should remember them. And hot dogs.
Yes. So when you're at your barbecues and enjoying your pools and whatnot, just remember it's because
look,
people didn't make it home.
Someone changed their profile. Hey, Pure Blood.
Wait a minute. Karen's a plant too?
Yeah. It's the lizard. I told you the lizard people, Mo. Why don't you ever? You're sitting here with you. Oh no, the Earth is not balanced on the back of a
the lizard
tortoise.
people, so why are they persecuting
It's the
their
lizard
own?
people. Because
it's
what other way to infiltrate you, Mo?
That's it. Claw me, because no, just no.
That's the way they get you. You'll start out thinking, well, maybe there is such a thing as lizard people, and then they do all these little tricks, and in the end, you will forget that the world is actually a disc on the back of a turtle, that everyone who works for the feds are lizards, and you can tell everything if you just watch 2012 in reverse. I might not stream tomorrow because the lizard people will get me for telling you the secrets.
They might.
And it's really important that
Baker has never said anything about Hillary Clinton. Can confirm.
I am all for a good government conspiracy, but you lose me at lizard people, y'all. That's where I draw the line. Lizard people.
Yeah, when we have access to so much lotion nowadays.
Why can't they just be, incompetent or evil? Why do they got to also be reptilians? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Well, I mean, now that because we don't want them to be the same species as us.
Oh, we're stuck with that. That's not so.
Yeah, I know.
What is happening up here? What is going on?
I don't know where they're supposed to be. So they.
Well, so my dreads were too thin, Mo. We're going to get into hair. You ready for this? They were too thin, and they would break as they thinned out in certain sections, right? So this one's a little bitty. So we've doubled them up. We've tied two of them together, all of them.
Oh.
So they're adjusting.
Oh, well, that is news to me. I didn't know
Any
you
information?
change your girth on your dread.
No. Something has changed.
In the clock adjustment, because what Mr. Brennan said is
Yes, and I'm happy to any information. All right.
change.
20 minutes.
No.
Thank you.
All right, so the court, please.
I just wanted to go back and make sure that it said 20 minutes.
How long ago was that?
35.
That's about average.
Oh.
Yeah, that checks out. Tutti Frutti, I thought about doing dreads in the beard, but Mrs. Valhalla shot that down with the quickness. She was not about that life.
Is she coming back with a fury because he already gave her the evidence that Brennan lied? Valhalla is a pet.
Court of session, please be seated.
Former pet. Former pet.
Thanks, Chrissy. All right, so Mix Valaire, I'm going to ask you that you speak right into your microphone when you answer, if you could, please.
Okay.
I thought she said Mick Foley. I was like, what?
All right, Mr. Lally, go right ahead.
Too little flannel.
Mix Valaire. We talked about sort of the physical match or mechanical fit analysis that you did with regard to each of the items individually, correct?
Yes.
And can you explain for the jury the process that
I think I need to do a morning stream where me and the expert exposes to lizard people. He's the only one other than me that knows the truth.
And birds are not real. You guys have a
you
whole thing to
undertook in your physical match analysis between different item numbers?
So between different items, amongst the questioned ones, I only compared the pieces that were large enough to have a label on them. Some pieces were quite small. I utilized several benches and divided them up into sections for each item, and individually pulled out all of those pieces. And then I had another bench where I did the actual comparison. I started with all the pieces of the same color and looked to see if any of those had potential edges that could match.
Now, with respect to items 715 and 716, did you do a physical match analysis between those two separate items?
May I look at my notes?
Yes.
Okay.
This poor kid.
Yes.
And what, if any, conclusions did you come to in relation to your physical match analysis between item 715 and item 716?
Two pieces from item 7-15, F and H, fit mechanically with two pieces from item 7-16, F and G.
She had a lot of nervous energy the last time as well.
Yeah.
Maybe she doesn't.
And what, if any,
like being
conclusion were you able to
equally-
draw with reference to the physical match?
She likes counting DNA
between
strains.
Or the center
pieces
of
from item
attention.
715 and pieces from
Also,
item
Lally
716?
kind of
Those four pieces were at one time together as part of a larger unit.
Now, Ms. Valier, what physical match analysis did you do with reference to items 7-6 and 7-11?
Friday?
So one piece from item 7-6, piece B, fit mechanically with one piece from item 7-11, piece D. So those two pieces were at one time together as a larger unit.
And Ms. Valier, with reference to items 7-8, 7-9, and 7-16, what, if any, conclusions were you able to draw from any physical match analysis you did between pieces from those three items?
So two pieces from item 7-8, pieces C and D, one piece from item 7-9, piece A, and one piece from 7-16, piece E were found to have a mechanical fit. So those pieces were at one time together as a larger unit.
Lastly, for this section, at some point, did you do a physical match analysis for the glass pieces in items 7-12 and 7-14?
Yes.
And what conclusions were you able to draw from your physical match analysis between 7-12 and 7-14?
There was no physical match between the glass pieces from, or parent glass pieces from 7-12 and the glass piece from item 7-14.
Now, Ms. Valier, are you aware that there was an additional analysis that was done with respect to glass pieces and other glass pieces that you didn't examine in your analysis at your lab?
I know that there was other trace work done. I'm not sure exactly what the work was.
Okay. And do you know who performed that additional trace work?
Christina Hanley.
And who is she to you as far as in reference to your work at the lab?
She's my supervisor.
Now, with regard to each of these items individually, they came as labeled in individual bags as we demonstrated on the screen, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And with respect to those bags, did you note any particular date associated on the front of those bags?
That's documented in my photos.
And all I'm asking here is that with respect to each of those bags of items, whether they be 3-1, 7-4, 7-5 or 6 or 8, many of those bags had different dates on them, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And when you received those items in that bag, you essentially removed the items from those individual bags, placed them on the table, and examined them, correct?
Yes.
And that examination included a microscopic examination?
Yes.
Now, with respect to any of those items, there were some items that pieces within the same bag that had the same date on that bag did not fit together mechanically, correct?
Yes.
However, there were items from one bag collected on one date that did fit mechanically with items from another bag collected on another date. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, if I could turn your attention to item 3-1. Again, for the jury, what is the physical description associated with item 3-1?
Item passenger side taillight, Massachusetts 3GC684.
Now, did you perform a physical match analysis with pieces from item 3-1, 7-5, 7-6, 7-8, 7-10, 7-11, 7-12, 7-13, 7-14, 7-15, and 7-16?
I compared them, yes.
And what, if any, conclusions did you come to from your analysis, your physical match analysis between item 3-1 and all of the items beginning with the number 7?
There was a physical match with, do you want me to list?
If you
all
could,
of them?
please.
Okay.
How the heck does
So
expert
2 pieces
wear
from item
glasses
7-5,
inside?
4 pieces from item 7-8, 1 piece from item 7-10, 4 pieces from item 7-11, 2 pieces from item 7-12, 2 pieces from item 7-13, 4 pieces from item 7-15, and 4 pieces from item 7-16 were found to fit mechanically with item 3-1.
And what, if any, conclusions were you then able to draw from your physical match analysis between item 3-1 and each of those respective items beginning with the number 7?
Those pieces were once together as part of a larger unit.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
She looks as bored as we are.
Additional photographs. You recognize what's depicted in them.
You can see.
Put it on the screen.
And may I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 2096. Ms. Gilman, yes. If you could even zoom in just a little bit more on the item itself. Ms. Valier, what are we looking at in this photograph?
So those pieces that I labeled from item 7 all of those, they all fit together mechanically into this piece.
And as far as earlier, you were testifying as far as the label maker and the different various pieces that you would label throughout the process of your physical match analysis. Do you see these in this photograph as well?
I do.
And where are they located with reference to the reconstructed piece above?
They're those little white rectangles on the piece.
So what's depicted here is the mechanical fit between items 7-5, 7-6, 7-8, 7-10, 7-11, 7-12, 7-13, 7-14, 7-15, and 7-16, correct?
Not items 7-8 and 7-14, but the other ones, yes.
And why not those two?
They didn't fit mechanically with the other pieces.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have 2150. And again, if you could just zoom in a little. And Ms. Valier, what are we looking at in this photograph?
So on the right side was that piece that was just shown. And on the left side is item 3-1.
And lastly, Ms. Gilman, if we could have 2151. Again, if you could zoom in on that item.
That would never
Ms. Valier, what are
happen.
we looking at in this photograph?
So that's that right piece on top of the tail light from the previous photo.
They found every piece except
this
for
the
a couple little ones.
Mechanical fit that you were testifying about earlier with reference to item 3-1, the taillight housing, and all of the various pieces that were found in 34 Fairview, starting with the number 7?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. Ms. Valier, lastly, in reference, did you also receive some debris from John O'Keefe's clothing?
Yes.
And Mr. Officer, we can have the lights back on. Thank you very much. And what did you find contained within that debris from John O'Keefe's clothing?
So it was 5 different items. So it was debris collected from, labeled as coming from the clothing. There was mostly.
You're not blocked, you idiot, but because you're an asshole
Message?
to sue, can one of the mods give Pure Blood another little weekend so they can come in with a new chat? Because you can call me all the names you want, but you don't call Sue anything. You don't call any of my viewers anything.
That's
Please, Mux. Thank you, Brandon, for fixing the problem. And again, when you come back with your next account and you start antagonizing people, again, I don't mind your debate, but don't call Sue nasty things. She is the inventor of the Sue bird.
The Sue bird.
Yeah, it's the Sue bird.
Debris, some apparent fibers.
Are there any pieces of apparent plastic contained within the debris?
Yes.
Was there dirt contained within the debris?
Yes.
The frozen
And that
dirt?
debris was labeled as an item 17-18.18. Is that correct?
I believe so.
And what is it that you did?
Mo, can I get a Dr. Bev, a Judge Bev?
I'll allow it if it's for yourself, Mr. Yannetti, but keep your comments to yourself and only yourself.
With the debris from the gray long sleeve shirt and the orange t-shirt.
That is pretty bad.
So those are all packaged in like glassine folds. And I looked through it and documented it.
When you say you documented it, did you look at it under a microscope?
Yes.
So you did an examination under a microscope, is that correct?
Yes.
And did you measure some of those items contained within the debris?
Yes.
Specifically, did you measure items of apparent clear plastic contained within the debris?
Yes.
And what did you measure those items to be?
Not the headlights. There was
The tail light.
his DNA on the tail light, but it was his girlfriend's car.
It was
The
parked in
piece
his
of clear
garage
apparent
all the time.
plastic
She
was
stayed there
approximately
like 4 days a
1/8
week or
inch
so.
by 1/16 inch.
And once you had conducted
Baker,
your
can you use the
preliminary
micro-
analysis,
the measuring deal, because so 1/8 inch by 1/4 of an inch, and that
Yeah, I
was
don't know how much that is.
and that was tucked on his clothes and didn't move through CPR, through a Lucas machine, through people, and the first responders cutting off in his puffy jacket and leaving down everywhere. I mean, wait, I misspoke. I didn't know he had a puffy jacket, or didn't. Not all. Stupid freak, weirdo. He's just weird. I don't understand anyone that's high speed when they're not a first or second lieutenant.
those items, where did those
Someday,
items go?
well, maybe someday.
I did no further examination on this myself. Christina Hanley might have examined some of these further.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Mr. Yannetti?
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'd like to first talk fairly briefly about your reconstruction of the taillight to which you've testified.
Well, I think he's going to do
At
it.
the outset, by the way, that
I
was
think he's gonna
item
demonstrate that
7-3.1.
Proctor found
Am I correct?
these, and
Sorry,
Yuri
for
found all of
which one?
these.
That's the tail light. This 7-3.1. Am I correct?
3-1, I believe.
7-3-1.
The tail light is item 3-1.
Oh, 3-1. I'm so sorry. Okay. With regard to that particular item, your lab has different departments, correct? Criminalists who do different things, correct?
Yes.
You are aware that there are scientists within your lab who do DNA analysis, for instance, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
And with regard to the order of processing items, is the DNA analysis done before or after you get the item?
It's usually before.
Okay. In this case, it was before. Am I correct?
I believe so.
Were you made aware that there were 3 contributors of DNA to that taillight, 3-1?
Were you made aware of that?
No.
Once you reconstructed the taillight, you'll agree with me that it was missing a piece, correct? Or pieces?
There was an empty spot on the overall reconstruction. Yes.
Were you ever provided with any pieces of taillight that would have filled in that missing spot?
No.
Were you ever provided or told about any pieces recovered from 1 Meadows Ave in Canton?
No.
Were you ever told about a collision at 1 Meadows Ave in Canton? In any case, you'll agree with me, there was no glass in that taillight at all, correct?
Glass?
Yeah. What
Oh,
is he
because the
talking about?
last witness was talking about glass found
on the bumper.
Yeah, and in the tail light, something. Yeah, something about glass with the last witness as well.
Within the tail light, I classified them as apparent plastic pieces.
There's no glass as part of the taillight, correct?
I mean, it depends on what you call, like, the bulbs usually have glass as far as I'm aware.
Those are very, very thin glass, though, correct? Those bulbs?
Yes.
All right. Now, your lab received clothing in connection with this case. You've testified to that, correct?
I received the debris labeled as coming from the clothing. I never saw the clothing at all.
Right, but you're aware that your lab received clothing before the debris got to you, correct?
Yes.
And your understanding was that that was John O'Keefe's clothing in which he was found on January 29th of 2022, correct?
It's labeled as coming from him. I'm not sure of the date that it was found.
Okay. You understand the procedure of that goes on at your lab when it receives evidence?
Yes.
And you know that once clothing is brought to your lab, it's given evidence numbers, correct?
Yes.
And then one of your colleagues at the lab handled the clothing and or examined it, correct, before it came to you?
Yes.
And your understanding is that one of your colleagues retrieved debris from those items of clothing and then packaged it in a fold before it got to you, correct?
Yes.
You then open up the fold and you look at the debris, correct?
Yes.
You never saw that debris inside the clothing, correct?
Correct.
And the pieces of clothing that come in are given evidence numbers when your lab receives them, correct?
Yes.
For instance, the orange t-shirt was given or was named item number 7-17.
Yes.
And the gray long sleeve shirt was item 7-18, correct?
Yes.
It's a brilliant
And your lab
strategy.
is accredited, correct?
Yes.
There is a complete chain of custody from the moment the clothing was brought to the lab to when the debris was removed from the clothing, ultimately to when you're in court today handling the items, correct?
Yes. Our in-lab chain of custody extends from when we receive it to when the submitting agent, it is returned to the submitting agency.
Okay. And you have complete confidence that the chain of custody at your lab is effective at making sure that the evidence does not get lost or mixed up or contaminated, right?
I mean, chain of custody is meant to track where a piece of evidence is. The evidence unit also does inventories and audits to make sure that things are where they're supposed to be.
And you have confidence in your lab's chain of custody policies and procedures, correct?
Yes.
But you'll agree that your lab cannot control who handled the clothing before it arrived at your lab, correct?
Yes.
There are times in which crime scene technicians or criminalists from your lab actually participate in the search for evidence at a crime scene, do they not?
Some of the people at the lab are crime scene responders, yes.
There are times when they actually take custody of evidence. Again, I'm talking about people from your lab, professionals. They take custody right from the crime scene and transport that evidence to your lab, correct?
Yes.
In those circumstances, your lab would have a complete chain of custody from discovery to seizure to testing or whatever comparison you're doing until you release the items, correct?
Yes, but the electronic chain of custody doesn't start until that item is entered into our LIMS system at the lab.
Right, but when it's entered in, it would be entered in as having been seized by somebody from your lab, correct? In the hypothetical that I'm giving you.
Yeah, there's an evidence submission form that says that this crime scene responder submitted it to the laboratory.
There are other cases, however, when the evidence is brought to your lab by the police, correct?
Yes.
Local departments have access to your lab?
For evidence drop-off, yes.
The state police have access to your lab for evidence drop-off?
Yes.
And in this case, it was not a criminalist or other professional from your lab who seized the clothing and brought it to your lab, correct?
I'm not sure.
Do you have a record of that in your report in terms of who it was that brought the material to your lab?
I could look at the evidence submission form to see who.
With the court's permission?
Yes. Okay.
Another sidebar?
Submitted by.
Seized.
Yes, but the electronic chain of custody doesn't start until that item is entered into our LIMS system at the lab.
Right, but when it's entered in, it would be entered in as having been seized by somebody from your lab, correct? In the hypothetical that I'm giving you.
Yeah, there's an evidence submission form that says that this crime scene responder submitted it to the laboratory.
There are other cases, however, when the evidence is brought to your lab by the police, correct?
Yes.
Local departments have access to your lab?
For evidence drop-off, yes.
The state police have access to your lab for evidence drop-off?
Yes.
And in this case, it was not a criminalist or other professional from your lab who seized the clothing and brought it to your lab, correct?
I'm not sure.
Do you have a record of that in your report in terms of who it was that brought the material to your lab?
I could look at the evidence submission form to see who.
With the court's permission?
Yes.
Sorry, I went back too far. I thought there was a sidebar. There was a sidebar.
I do.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Lally.
Having reviewed your reports, can you testify to the jury about who it was that brought this evidence into the lab?
So you can tell us.
Okay. So submission 7, all the items that are 7 dash, was submitted by Trooper Michael Proctor.
Were you aware of the date of the incident that gave rise to this case?
Yes.
And what was that date?
January 29th, 2022.
Were you aware that the clothing that you received was seized from the Good Samaritan Hospital that very day?
No.
What date was the clothing brought to your lab?
March 14th, 2022.
So that means that your chain of custody at the lab began on March 14th of 2022, correct?
Yes.
And would you agree with me that was about 6 weeks after
6 weeks, 1 month
the
and a
date of
half.
the incident, January 29th of 2022?
Yes.
And of course, you can't speak to the chain of custody from January 29th to March 14th of 2022, correct?
Correct.
And you have no
In fact,
information
nobody
and do
can.
not know why Michael Proctor waited 6 weeks to bring this clothing to your lab, do you?
Sustained.
Do you know where Michael Proctor stored this clothing during that 6-week period?
No.
Do you know how often he was alone with access to the clothing during that 6-week period? Do you know if he had access to pieces of red or clear taillight during that 6-week period?
He did.
Sustained. Move on, Mr. Lally.
That's how you plant stuff in the mind of the juror, and just move
Actually,
on because you can't.
not
ask
she would
present
everything.
when the
know
clothing
that.
was seized,
She
correct?
would know that. She
No,
would know
because
that.
there's
He
no
turned
chain
it-
of custody.
He turned it into her. At the very least, he had it on the car ride from the evidence in Canton or the trooper station.
Yeah,
to the
technically,
lab.
yes.
At the very
yes.
least.
Yeah.
Correct.
You did not have custody of this clothing from January 29th of 2022 to March 14th of 2022, correct?
Correct.
You do not know what was done with the clothing before it arrived at your lab, correct?
You've covered this, Mr. Lally. Move on, please.
One last question. You cannot vouch for how the clothing or taillight pieces were handled before they got to your lab, correct?
I cannot.
Anything further, Mr. Lally, or are you all set? I'm not criminal.
Yeah, Bev didn't mind yesterday when Brennan was doing it
Nope.
for
Yeah.
20 minutes.
Did you hear her say, "I killed him"? Did you hear her say, "I hate you"?
There
I
is
killed
a
you"?
separate evidence unit contained within the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory, correct?
Correct.
And fair to say you have absolutely nothing to do with that, correct?
I'm not a part of that unit.
And so your responsibility as far as chain of custody is
big
concerned
unit.
is from when you retrieve the item during your analysis and then when you return the item to the evidence unit, correct?
Correct.
And from that analysis that you performed, you found that there were 10 different items, starting with the number 7, that were a mechanical fit, the 3-1, the taillight housing from the defendant's vehicle, correct?
If it's 10 items, I don't have. I can count them.
As far as all those items beginning with 7 that you went through or elucidated on your direct examination, each of those were a mechanical fit to each other and then to the taillight housing in 3-1.
The pieces that were previously stated, yes.
Nothing further.
All right. Mr. Lally, you are all set.
Thank you, Brennan. What? You said outburst.
Yay, outburst.
All right, so jurors, that is it for today. I am told when I spoke with counsel earlier that we are still on track. I have to tell you the same cautions. Please do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into this case. If you happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case, please disregard it and let us know. Be extra careful with your social media use. And also, I just want to remind you, next week, Thursday is a half day and Friday is a day off. All right. So
Friday is a day off.
You rise for the jury.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Jesus. An unexpected.
Short break while jury exits. Is she gonna come back and?
Yesterday was for, and the other
Oh, she's going to motion maybe.
So before we recess, I appreciate that council provided me with the information. Mr. Leslie, I got the 2 reports that you had that were incorporated and what the Commonwealth had given me a few minutes before, but I appreciate that it was pointed out here. We've had full argument on this yesterday and today. My findings for the record are that the defendant has not persuaded me of undue surprise or unfair prejudice by this information.
Shocking.
And I don't find that there's
Shocking.
delayed disclosure. Of course, all of this is ample game for cross-examination. Certainly as to what Mr. Burgess knew, what he looked at, why he looked at it, when he looked at it, why he changed his report, and violation of the sequestration order is all for cross-examination, and I will give you a lot of leeway with that, Mr. Alessi, but I'm not having a voir dire on that. Mr. Alessi, I
Not
can
even getting
tell
a
you,
voir dire?
obviously, you've got a great facility for cross-examining on the underlying information here. You've done fulsome cross-examinations. I have every confidence you can do it here again. But if after the direct, you demonstrate that you need further time, I'll certainly hear you on that. And more importantly, perhaps, if you feel that the testimony of Jen McCabe and the others that you've mentioned is critical and that you need to recall them, I'll hear you on that as well. So regarding Dr. Welcher, as my understanding, the request yesterday was for, and it's been a request, I think, a few days. We've addressed it at sidebar, and I found that it wasn't the right time. Let's see how much Dr. Welcher could go through. I understand Dr. Welcher will testify in the Commonwealth's case in chief next week or so, Mr. Brennan.
Hopefully next week, if not
All right.
the day after the holiday.
And that will be for all of the material that was provided to the defendant initially, right, by the Commonwealth's discovery deadline?
Correct.
And what you're asking for is that after ARCA testifies the new information, you're asking for rebuttal, right?
Yes, limited to the new information.
All right, so I would allow under these circumstances a limited rebuttal, and we can define the scope after we hear the testimony of ARCA. So those are my rulings. Your objections were noted. I'll see everybody on Monday.
All right. Bev, your bias is showing.
Bev,
take on.
Pull that rope a little tighter because, yeah, your bias is showing. Big, not a surprise. Bev,
Yeah,
of course,
I-
would never treat both sides equally. And I really hope that they can go home and find something and start Monday morning and say, we have to look at this again, Your Honor. I know you're a craptastic biatch, but they clearly changed their order. And at this point, we see no other solution than ask for a mistrial with prejudice, because we have now been taken away a big part of our defense.
Yeah.
And while Mo runs that down, I will get my Friday beer. So, Brendan, get your beer.
I'm in charge, everyone. As I already had my claw mixed with like a crud ton of Diet Sprite. I will say that this is not shocking, but I would not be shocked if over the weekend you do have a motion put in for a mistrial or a retrial. I don't see there being any way to remedy the fact that the state has gone with one theory for 3 weeks, and then on the 4th week is going to change to a different theory. Now, Brennan says that the time doesn't change, but this is actually, again, seconds count, especially when Karen has to be at the house at a certain point. And no, at least not my Wi-Fi starts 3, or a football length from my house. I live in the country, so maybe it's different in the city, but it does. My Wi-Fi does not extend to 30, or is it 100 yards or 300 yards?
Mine probably does. The goat cam's out in the barn on the far side of the barn.
Oh, fair point.
My phone will pick it up almost all the way to the mailbox. Almost.
I guess I've
Mine
not
might.
done scientifical stuff with it.
I've got good internet though. I've got fiber.
We have rural internet.
That sucks.
Yeah.
You should look into Starlink. I don't know if it's
I
any
have
good or
already
not, but my neighbors
offered-
got it and they like it.
I know I have already offered Elon Musk to be the only chick that's not a socialist to have his kid. I'm willing to have cosine tangent messiah through IVF and call him little cosine, little Coco. No, not Coco. I have issues from this trial. Little C. I'll call him little C. That's fine.
Thanks for pausing while you talk. I left YouTube because of ads. Looks for someone on Rumble. I found Ricada Law or something, and they talk through the whole testimony. I will follow you. Thanks. Independent thinker, this is what annoys a lot of people with us, but some people really like that we take the breaks because, well, if it's just running down people's CV and the educational background, we might talk over that. But we do know how annoying it can be when Mo and I are sitting here waxing on about our waxing routines. I am more of a Brazilian. Mo is, if you're thinking early to late Amazon forest, No hippos.
Let it grow, let it grow. Can't hold it back anymore.
But we do take our times, and everyone is complaining because it takes longer. No, we'll speed through all of it, and we're only 5 minutes late. And everyone who is newer to us, please ask as many questions, contribute as much as you can to the debate, because we also really like to ask and answer questions. Some of you might just pop in and see this for the first time, the trial. Some of you might be old hounds who said, oh, Lally's talking, I'm getting out of here. We like to do a recap. We like to keep you up to speed, and we like to answer questions if we know them. None of us are lawyers. We are barely getting out of public school with a degree that you can pass on, but we are entertaining, and we have a smart group of people in our chat. MG Law, which you should go follow him if you are on YouTube. I think he's on Rumble as well. But MG Law is a really smart cookie, even though he's from Oregon. Colorado, sorry. It's the same place. Am I understanding correctly that she's allowing the prosecution to rebut the defense? After Arca have testified, they will have a talk about how much he is allowed to rebut. Yes. You're a hound dog.
Ooh.
Thank you so much, Maria. And I hope your husband didn't like my talk too much. Which you didn't give what asked them for brief. I missed something.
So I think he's trying to say that Bev, when she said that she didn't hear enough to, give any sort of credence to the defense, she also told them to be short, to not go into detail, and just give me an
vigorously defense. Yeah, but she keeps putting up these barriers so they can't argue in any way that could be beneficial to them, because make it short. And then we know she's already made her motions before she arrives. She doesn't care. But I really hope that they have two variants that they can show the world at least. But yeah. Are you all covering Johnny Somali's court appearance today? No. If you want to have coverage of weird social media stuff, the expert is the channel to follow. He will have Mrs. Valhalla on. They will talk about what girl likes. It's more like a crossover between a fashion show and hair braiding. And Mrs. Valhalla will then say, can we please talk about the case? But
that's how it usually goes.
More pop culture is the expert. He likes all the internet drama and all the pop culture, all the stuff that none of us really digs in too deep. But it's Friday, and you know what they say on Fridays, gotta get down on Friday. So today I'm gonna chase it.
And we lost him.
They need to file briefs across the board today or over the weekend, stuff them with paper. I would do that. I would make motion on motion to say, we have now gone through page 4. Page 4 is totally new evidence, can't be allowed. Page 26, and it's 100 and something pages. So I would file motions. But happy Friday, everyone. And
damn it.
Ready?
Baker starting the week out or the weekend
It's so
out
cold.
right.
It's so cold. Ooh.
Amateur. I've told you to put them out on Fridays.
I figured we were going all day. I usually do it on the lunch. I usually grab it out on the lunch. Oh, it's foamy. Better.
Well, you can't keep up, so. It's actually 18:40
p.m. 12:40 p.m. Lefty.
Also, Lefty, it's
wrecked.
Bev rules No booze until after the morning news, unless it's Bailey's and coffee, then make mine a double.
Yep.
It doesn't. It's kind of like beer isn't drinking.
Canton rules, baby.
Also,
Canton rules.
technically, the weekend doesn't count, right? You can drink anytime you want on the weekend, and the weekend starts after court on Friday, no matter what time that is. That's officially the weekend time, and
Fair
it doesn't
point.
goat salsa.
But yeah, it was a surprise half day, but it doesn't. I don't mind it because I have to go and drive 2 hours in the morning. So let's do this thing here.
Hey, y'all, I'm Valhalla. I have goats, and that's really all you need to know. I also build Lego, and sometimes I paint. That's all I got. Come check me out. We have fun.
Hey guys, I'm Mo from Mo in the Deep End. I sometimes wear wigs. I may come as Lori Vallow next week because I do have her wig. We just found it. I do mornings with Mo every weekday. So I've got about, headlines, true crimes, and, well, just all the absurd. And on Fridays, we do only absurd. So if you want to check it out, it's about, I try to time it so that you'll be ready for the trial. So it's about 45 minutes during Karen Read and an hour during non-Karen Read time.
Thank you so much, Palola's mom. And thank you for mentioning me on the podcast 2 weeks ago. I saw it a little late. I sent him an email because people misunderstand the professional juror thing. This weekend, I have a maybe for a Sunday stream like the normal. I don't know what time it'll be, but I did talk to someone. I'll get back to you ASAP. Well, AAP.
AARP.
There might
retired.
there might be a show Sunday. Tomorrow I'll gladly go watch Baby Baker and my daughter, and let's see what happens tonight. If I get out of bed at some point, I will be joining the expert who will be doing Friday Night Live, the best show with the expert on Fridays. Potentially the best Friday Night Live show also. Valhalla will be joining us maybe. I think special guest is Winning Reality.
I don't know if everybody else knew that.
He said it yesterday in stream.
Oh, okay. Then, yeah.
He said, get ready for Friday Night Live. And you said, are you coming on as a guest? And he said, nothing.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That was on our stream yesterday.
Bring back low-rise jeans and VS thongs.
Agreed.
And thongs is, of course, what Australians wear on their feet. Thank you, Brendan, for making that. As long as they don't wear Birkenstocks, because I am sick and tired of going to the gym and seeing men and women in Birkenstocks.
Can we all agree that high-waisted jeans are the worst thing that mankind has ever created?
Yes. Okay. This is a high-waisted skirt. This high-waisted skirt comes right under. Now, and I can tell you, Mr. Mo gets mighty confused because he's like, are these like, what what magic and weirdness have you put to keep me from everything? And I'm like, no, it's just high-waisted, sweetheart, and I don't have any waist.
It's terrible. It's
terrible. Yeah, and even skinny people look like they've got a little baby badunk.
Yeah, it gives you a fupa. Even if you're a skinny girl, it gives you a fupa.
I don't like it.
It's wrong and needs to be stopped. And I don't even wear jeans anymore, and I still vote. No.
And by the way, maybe if you join Friday Night Live tonight, you can hear who will be the wonderful people who will be joining us three and the expert and the White Rabbit in Dollywood in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks.
3 weeks.
Time. Roughly 3 weeks.
June 4th, 5th, and 6th.
Well, Dollywood will be the 5th.
The 5th.
Which in Denmark is Father's Day. So if you want to come and make me no, I shouldn't say make me a daddy again.
Whoa.
If you want to come and call me daddy, you can join
There
us
you go.
in
Saved it.
I don't have alimony money. I don't make that much. I'm such a retard.
It happens, buddy. It happens.
Yeah, all of a sudden it was a half day. So if you want it in German, maybe Serenative wants it in German. Harry will be going live in an hour and 45 minutes. For anyone who speaks German or needs to listen to it in German, he has a great channel, mostly I think for us Europeans, where he translates it into German simultaneously as they speak. It's a very good way to get brushed up on your German.
I'm going to be honest. It's one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. Baker went on his show a few weeks ago. Baker was speaking English. Harry was translating it to German in real time, and then asking questions back, and it was amazing. It was the most.
That was a weird crossover. He was asking me in German, I was answering in English, and he was then translating it in, and his chat was in German, and it got a little weird, but I think we have good chemistry, as the kids say.
It was good. I only understood half the conversation, but it was good.
But
although you might have trouble with this testimony, and I don't mean that you can't translate it. I mean you can't stay awake.
Oh yeah, you should probably run it at 5 times speed and just say, "Plastik war gefunden."
Today was a rough day, bro. It was a rough day.
Yeah, Godspeed.
DNA was gefunden. Mixture von 2 Personen, 5 Personen, 2 Personen, 5 Personen.
How do you say septillion in German?
Nobody knows.
Loud and a little bit aggressive.
With lots of hand movement that I'm not going to demonstrate. Oh, that's good.
That's funny. Oh, by the way, I have had a mod apocalypse. I have had a mod riot. So today's outro will be a new outro because Jemima.
A motney.
I had a motney. That's what we're going with.
That's good.
Jemima yesterday sent me a voicemail saying, "I will find you. I know where you will be staying in 3 weeks. Marissa have the keys to your YouTube, so no one will miss you, fatty."
That's true, actually.
Yeah.
They could just keep running the channel. Nobody would even notice.
Yeah, they could just go in and change my AdSense, and that's fine. And
just be an avatar all of a sudden with a voice mod.
Yeah.
Nobody would even know.
Hey guys, this is the Broken Baker out of Denmark, y'all. How you hanging? But I am now no longer allowed to play this.
Jen!
So I won't be doing that. Hasta luego.
Yes, I did examine his lower extremities. That is protocol in any case of suspected impact with a motor vehicle. So I did examine his legs, and I did not see any evidence of an impact site.
Just pin it on the girl.